of the members here in the chamber. So unfortunately, we can't do that. But we'll pass over to John now for the members' attendance and apologies.
So thank you, Deputy Mayor. So just before doing so, just to reiterate that it's a problem uploading the presentation onto the WebEx. I think our members who are remote can hear us okay and can still talk into the chat box. Our colleagues in IT are working away to try and solve the problem. Hopefully, we will get to a point where the presentations will be able to be uploaded as we progress. But in the first instance, we'll try and progress without the presentations, and then they'll come on stream. And we'll see where we get to, hopefully with that, if members are content. So just opening up formally to all members of Derry City and Strabane District Council, you're hereby summoned to attend a special meeting of the Council, which will be a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically here in the Council chamber, Monday the 18th of December, starting now at 14:18. And as always, members, starting with the roll call, Alderman Cook.
Here.
Alderman Guy.
Here.
Alderman Hussey.
Aye.
Alderman Carrigan.
Online, John.
Alderman McCready. Alderman McMorris.
John Nevery's here with me, but she's experiencing some difficulty getting it on her iPad.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Middleton. Alderman Wilkinson. Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor Lillian Barr.
Here.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
Online, John.
Councillor Boggs.
And Shaw, John.
Councillor Boyle. Councillor Cusick.
Here, John.
Councillor Deany. Councillor Devine.
And
Councillor
Shaw.
Donnelly. So is that you, Councillor Devine? Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Alex Duffy. Councillor Sandra Duffy.
And Shaw.
Councillor Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Fleming. Councillor Gallagher.
And Shaw.
Councillor Harkin. Councillor Hart.
And Shaw.
Councillor Heaney. Councillor Hutton. Councillor Jackson.
And Shaw, John.
Councillor Leonard.
And Shaw, online.
Councillor Logue, apologies. Councillor McDade. Councillor McGinley. Councillor McGowan. Councillor McHugh.
Shaw, John. And Shaw.
That was Councillor McGowan, wasn't it? Yeah. Councillor McHugh.
And Shaw, online, John.
Thank you. Councillor Mooney. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Norris. Councillor O'Farrell.
Shaw, John.
Councillor Riley.
Here, John.
Councillor Tierney.
Here.
And Councillor Anelis. Thank you, members. Thank you.
Thank you. John, item number 3 is the broadcasting statement. I would like to remind everyone present at this meeting in the Guildhall or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable for repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council's privacy notice may be found on the Council website. Item number 4 is the declaration of members' interest. If anybody has that now, they can declare it or throughout the meeting as it arises. Oh, okay. Item number 5 is chairperson's business. There is none, thankfully. So moving on then now to item number 6, and it looks like we have the presentation as well, John. So I'll pass over to you, John, then to just sing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and good afternoon again, members. Members, just very briefly from myself before we start. We have quite a wealth of information before you today. I know we have had numerous meetings over the last number of years, and in particular the last number of months, with regard to an update on the various City Deal projects. Today, obviously, we're focusing on the suite of projects that comprise the Strabane Town Centre Regeneration Programme of projects. The report's fairly self-explanatory, so I'm not going to run through it again, but essentially what the report does is update specifically in relation to Strabane. It takes excerpts from the overall business, or the overall update report that was presented most recently into Governance and Strategic Planning Committee. And the key objective today, members, is to step through in open business the key component parts of each of the projects that comprise the Strabane City Deal, and in particular to step through the key issues that each of the business cases for each of the projects address. So we're absolutely delighted this afternoon, firstly, to have our colleagues from Council, Brenda, Angela and Joanne, who will, and obviously my other colleagues from Council as well, Alfie, Karen and Damon, who will update on the overall business case, the raison d'etre, if you like, for the project, how the master plan works, how it's come together, the key financial aspects of it, and the work that's been done to get us to this place. So we'll lead off with that, Deputy Mayor, following just a piece that my colleague Eamon's going to update on. We will then have each of our partners present on the individual elements of it. So we'll start off with the Western Health and Social Care Trust, and we're delighted to have Keith, Wendy and Emer here. We will do a little bit of musical chairs and have our colleagues from Health up after we finish with the Council side of things. Then we'll have colleagues from the Northwest Regional College. We'll have Patrick, Gary and Gillian join us just to step through the key component parts of that part of the project. And we will finish with colleagues from DFI led by Harry, who will step through the key issues with regard to the footbridge and the EA works in relation to it. So the objective, members, is that you will leave today hopefully with a very comprehensive overview of the totality of the scheme, of what is contained within the business cases, and hopefully provide endorsement for us to move forward from this point. The OBCs have been, most of them are in the system just within the last couple of days, or are going into the system in the next couple of days with government. The objective is to make sure that we get to the break with the Strabane OBCs lodged with central government. And then, of course, the process begins of answering what I'm sure will be a considerable number of queries and meetings and workshops to do with what is comprised within the OBCs. Part of the meeting today through you, Deputy Mayor, is once we've gone through this, and we're trying to keep the vast majority of this in open business, and the slides extract the key component parts of the OBCs in open business so that that information can be transmitted. But obviously the OBCs themselves, the detail of it, they have to be in closed business, and we're hoping that when we get to that point in the meeting, it's simply a formality, that most of the conversation will have been held in open business, and it's a formality to hopefully approve the direction of travel in formal business, and in particular with regard to the Council OBC. So obviously each of the OBCs is owned by the respective partners, and obviously the respective partners, Health, DFI and the Regional College, have their own governance structures, and have their own governance structures through which their own OBCs are approved and commented upon and endorsed. But as Council is leading overall on City Deal, it's important that members are aware of the totality of each of the schemes and how they knit together and the detail of each. So I hope that is a reasonable overview of what we're trying to do today, and maybe just pass to Eamon for a few comments, and Eamon, you can take it, pass from there. Thank you.
Thanks, John, and through you, Chair. As John has said, members, really today is a walkthrough of the detail, a walk through the journey that we have been on to get us from strategic outline case to the outline business cases, which hopefully will be the key to getting financial deal and us moving to the next phase of development. So, you know, there's an awful lot of detail in all of these slides, but hopefully a lot of it you will have heard before. Some of it might be new. So again, if there are any questions, we're more than happy to take them. So I think we better start because there's quite a lot to get through. So if members don't mind, if you can go to the first slide, please. Thanks. So members, basically, this is an aerial view, I'm sure you all recognise it, of Strabane. The area outlined in red, obviously, is the Canal Basin site and was the original site for the investment, for the proposed investment for City Deal. As you can see there, you know, the key streets are all marked, and hopefully as we go through the presentation, you'll see how we've been able to extend the impact that City Deal will make beyond the actual red line that you see before you today. But the red line is the line that is owned or will be in council ownership, and that we will be able to take forward and move forward on. I suppose the intent of City Deal, as everyone is aware, is to revitalise an underutilised space within the town and to breathe heart back into the town, to drive footfall across the entirety of the town centre, really from, if you like, the other side of the river, and that will be facilitated by the new pedestrian bridge, John Wesley Street, the town centre, and of course the Canal Basin and right up onto Derry Road. So one of the sites there that is missing from this aerial view is the North West Regional College campus at present, just up from the council offices, and that's also being utilised as part of the investment as we move forward. So it's about accessibility to the entirety of the town, driving future parallel investment from the private sector and indeed hopefully from the public sector, and if you like, you know, creating that reason to invest in Strabane. Second slide, members, shows basically 5, 10 and 15-minute walking distances from the town centre. And I think that this, you know, drives home the point that we're trying to make. The whole town is accessible. If you look at the 15-minute circle as outlined there, I think it's quite clear that that pretty much encompasses the whole of the town region. And again, it's about maximising that, creating a new modal shift, getting people to walk, getting people not to bring cars into the town centre, creating direct routes and driving footfall through all of the streets that comprise the town centre, the Canal Basin side, and indeed Derry Road. So what is the town regeneration project? So basically, members, this will be reimagined and revitalised through the construction of new buildings from the North West Regional College's new campus, a primary healthcare hub, a new leisure centre provided by council, improved connections in terms of public transport through an active travel bridge, which will again join the other side of the town into the town centre. I think one of the key elements of this is about co-locating. And so we're talking about driving footfall and creating that critical mass, having health, education, and indeed the leisure centre all on the one site. And within, if you like, the confines of one site, they not only feed off each other, but hopefully there will be connections between leisure and health. There will be connections between the college and health, and indeed other elements of City Deal that aren't necessarily just restricted to the Strabane Town Centre. So the purpose of the programme business case, basically, members, is to provide a framework within which the individual projects and the outline business cases, which again you will receive as part of the confidential presentation that comprise this programme, can be approved by the respective sponsoring central government departments. So, as you know, City Deal works on the basis that the funding has been identified, but the funding spend must be approved by central government departments. And we've worked very closely and continue to work very closely with colleagues in the central government departments. They're part and parcel of everything that we've been doing. And again, we hope that that eases the journey of the OBCs through the casework system. Hopefully, this will provide further framework that will support the implementation of the individual projects and capture the wider regeneration impacts, members, that we all want to see as part of this, which we consider will be a transformational project for Strabane. So as I said, we need to secure the funding through central government departments. There are site enabling works, car parking works, land acquisition, environmental improvement works, and project management costs. And all of that needs to be secured so that we can move forward, in addition to the funding, which will allow our partner colleagues to actually do the builds on site. Members will be aware that we have had to purchase an additional site for car parking because there will be car parking moved from the site so that we can actually improve the whole view of the site and view the public realm works that will happen there. And this has been facilitated by our colleagues in DFC, and members will be aware of the arrangements for that. So as we move forward, members, as I say, the strategic outline case to the outline business case has seen a project which initially was valued and proposed investment of £79 million. And that has now increased to a project which will see investment of £102 million without any private sector investment at this stage. It has meant that we have updated the site configuration, as I said, extended the area of influence for the project, and that includes now the Derry Road campus of the existing Northwest Regional College. So at that point, or at this point, members, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Angela, who's going to take us through some of the strategic case and policy context. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Eamon. Just by way of background, members, the Better Business Case approach to business cases, it focuses on the 5-case model, which includes a strategic case, an economic case, a commercial case, a financial case, and the management case. I'm going to walk you through the strategic case now, and my colleagues will focus on each of the other cases that make up the programme business case. As a starting point in the strategic case, the project needs to be set within a strategic policy context, both at a regional and a local level. And we have to demonstrate that it fits with central and local government strategies and that it will deliver on the outcomes and priorities highlighted within those. So as a starting point, we looked at a number of key strategies at both a Northern Ireland and at a local level. And as you can see, at a Northern Ireland level, we looked at the programme for government, we looked at the 10X economy, and we looked at the regional development strategy, amongst others. And at a local level, we looked at our inclusive growth plan, and we looked at the draft LDP, and we looked at the Strabane local growth plan as well. And we were able to conclude that we could clearly demonstrate that there's a strong strategic fit at a national and local level, and that the project will deliver on priorities and outcomes set out within those. It's also worth noting that both the strategic growth plan and the Strabane local growth plan, they had identified all these projects that make up the Strabane Town Centre Regeneration project. They identified the need for an iconic shared space in the town centre, the delivery of a new primary healthcare centre, a new leisure centre, They looked at supporting the business case for a new capital build for the Northwest Regional College. It identified the need for an active travel bridge from the bus station into the town centre. And it looked at as well at the development of significant regeneration sites in Strabane town centre, and it names the Canal Basin as well. So really this project will actually deliver on those priorities and actions identified within both the strategic growth plan and the local growth plan. In terms of developing the programme business case and within the strategic case, we also needed to look at why is the project needed, and we had to examine that under a number of key areas. And you'll see on the slide we looked at it across quite a number of areas. And one of the areas that we looked at was the state of existing facilities in terms of leisure, health, and the college. And currently, the majority of these buildings they're quite old. They're in need of major repair works, and they're not fit for the delivery of a modern service. There's also restricted capacity in existing facilities, constraining any opportunities to grow service to respond to demand and changing strategic priorities. We also look, and that there will be articulated in more detail within each of the partners' business cases. We also looked at, in terms of need, the socioeconomic challenges impacting on Strabane town. And these are well rehearsed. We know there's high levels of unemployment across the council area. There's high levels of economic inactivity within Strabane, currently at 42% compared to the council average of 35.5%. Deprivation is particularly high in Strabane. Strabane West, the super output area, is the most deprived in Northern Ireland. With lower than average levels of income, higher than average levels of people with low to no qualifications, and low levels with level 4 and above qualifications. And that's currently at 17% within Strabane compared to 20% for the council area. There's low levels of car ownership in both Strabane East and West, and the health outcomes for the council area in general are lower than the average across Northern Ireland. As part of the research for the business case as well, we undertook some primary research, and we undertook a number of surveys with town centre users and businesses. And this is really important because what it does, it sort of reinforces the need for the project, but it also gave us baseline information from which we could set our spending objectives and measure the regeneration impact and the success of the project. And generally, in terms of the findings of that, we found that public perception of the Canal Basin space was poor. People felt that it was underutilised, and generally it wasn't a safe, people didn't feel it was a safe space, particularly in the evening at night. And many did feel, as part of that survey and analysis, that the co-location of key public services on the site would be a good thing for Strabane. We also, as part of the primary research as well, we undertook an environmental quality audit and an inspection of the area, and that's just a physical inspection of the space, and it sets out some of the challenges of the space in its current configuration and the opportunities. And we know that it is a key strategic town centre site, but in its current format as a car park, it really is underutilised, and it's a focus for antisocial behaviour at this particular point in time, and that there was reinforced as well with some consultations we took place that were undertaken with key stakeholders, particularly the PSNI. They found that that with the walls around the scheduled monument, the actual performance space, that was actually hiding a lot of antisocial behaviour. We know as well from the discussions with them that the car parks were becoming a focal point for boy racer type activity. So it was a space that, it had become a focal point for anti. So anything that we did on that site would hopefully address those issues. In terms of, we looked at the town centre itself as, how it performs as a district town. And we drew in a lot of research and to back that up. We looked at the research that was done for the draft LDP, but also research about the role of town centres. And Department for Communities is a very extensive town centre database, and that helped build our evidence base around that. And we found that through that research that there's high levels of vacancy within Strabane town centre at 23.4%. There's a poor retail experience at this particular point in time, and there's low levels of private sector investment. In fact, some of our multiples have actually left Strabane at the moment. And it was interesting that we found a report that Savills have produced, and Savills were looking at town centres, and how town centres could recover, in the, after COVID. And they were saying it's not necessarily about bringing more retail in as the first step. It's about looking how do you change the way a town centre is formatted. And they were looking at mixed use developments. And they suggested that you bring in your health, your leisure, and your education into town centres. So what that does, it brings in additional footfall into your town centre, which then drives growth, but also then makes the town centre become a much more attractive environment for your retail. We also looked at car parking and land acquisition, and car parking is important because it is, the site has two quite significant car parks, and we wanted to ensure as part of that research that there would still be sufficient car parking within the town centre to meet both town centre needs and the needs of each of our project partners. And we had a transport and traffic assessment study that fed into that there, and basically they concluded that with the acquisition of the Academy site, we would have sufficient car parking on site. Another area that we looked at in terms of need was around improved connectivity to the transport hub, to the residential areas and active travel priority, and also about promoting active travel priorities. It's really important that if you start to move public services into the town centre, that the town centre is connected and that it doesn't disadvantage anybody in particular. So the new active travel bridge will connect residential areas better into the town centre and to the new facilities and to the transport hub. It will encourage more people to use sustainable and active travel modes, thereby encouraging a modal shift, which is where we want to be as well. And we know that there's a lot of wider benefits from encouraging more people to walk and cycle, and these are well documented. There's health benefits, there's environmental benefits, and there's economic. And it's well evidenced in terms of research that if you get more people to walk into a town centre as opposed to driving into a town centre, they are more likely to spend more money in the town centre when they walk into it, because it increases dwell time. And as well as that, we looked at the alignment with other investment and how this project complements other projects that are taking place within the town centre, other regeneration schemes, such as the Strabane Public Realm Scheme and the wider greenways investment, to make sure that the project is well connected into those greenways. And as well as the City Deal Smart Digital project as well, because that's looking at the potential of a smart energy project within Strabane. And this infographic here just really sets out, it clearly shows all the socioeconomic sort of challenges impacting in the town centre. And I suppose in terms of us identifying or moving into our preferred option and how we measure the success of the project, we had to look at our spending objectives. And this slide here sets out what those spending objectives are. And first of all, these have to be smart. They have to be specific. They have to be measurable. They have to be achievable, realistic, and time-bound. And they help us measure the success of the project and identify our preferred option. And we used our baseline information from our survey to help us determine these. And I'm not going to go, there's quite a few there, so I'm not going to go through them all in detail, but you'll see that every single one of them is measurable. But these are more to capture the overarching spending objectives for the project. Each of the project partners will have their own spending objectives, which will be very, very specific to health, leisure, to education, and to the bridge. And as part of the process as well, in terms of the strategic case, we had to do a high level look at what our benefits are. There. So this diagram here is really, it's called a theory of change. And really what that helps us to look at what our range of outputs are, our outcomes and impacts over the short to medium term. And this theory of change diagram really shows how the integrated health, education, leisure and active travel project will address the many challenges impacting on Strabane Town Centre and deliver tangible benefits for local residents. And it helps us to identify the benefits that the project will deliver. And it shows the flow from the specific inputs and the project deliverables, which is the £102 million investment, along with the outputs and KPIs that will be used to monitor progress, along with the longer term outcomes and impacts. And this will be used to help us develop a detailed benefits realisation plan that has been included in the management case. And that benefits realisation plan really draws on a lot of what's in that theory of change diagram. And I'm now going to pass you on to Brenda, who will talk you through the rest of the strategic case and the economic case.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, councillors. So I'm going to concentrate now on the actual physical characteristics of the site itself. Angela's taking us through the wider context. So within the slide that we're on now on constraints and dependencies, these are fairly standard for a physical regeneration and capital investment site. The main constraints that are worth focusing on here is just the scale and the timeline of this project. The scale is sitting at 102 million at the moment. So the financial scale and the timeline of running possibly into approximately 10 years for delivery. So that in itself leads us towards the constraints around variability and budget over that time, commitment to the programme management from our partners. It's not just from the council, it's from our 4 partners. There's 5 of us in this together. So there's also the constraints around timelines. We've got key milestones here where each of the partners and ourselves have to achieve certain outputs and stay in line with our programme. And we need to be certain that we're not knocking each other out, because that affects costs and delivery. So the constraints also include the land ownership and the acquisition of third-party lands, which we've done. We've gone a long way, thank God, on those, and we've got to the stage of having the contract issued in the academy site. The constraint, we've talked about it already, of car parking, wanting to make sure that we don't leave the town any worse off in terms of car parking, even though we are adding substantially to the actual development footprint in the town. Making sure at all times that we don't have any negative impact on the businesses, and that we minimise anything that's absolutely necessary there, and that we work together with our partners in DFI and TransLink on minimising the impact of traffic and congestion. The dependencies are straightforward. Availability, obviously, of the Northwest Regional College site, but the fact that we're all partners together means that the communication there will be very robust. Business case approvals, hopefully we'll get our business cases in now, the ones that aren't in already, and get our approval processed with time being of the essence. And the normal statutory approvals and timelines of those elements that are out with our own control. The risks on the next slide. The risks here from project development and on to project implementation, again, fairly standard, but we have, as the city dealing team here and our directors and chief executive, we are managing these on a daily basis. We've managed and mitigated a large amount of them. We've already substantially reduced the live risk register to a few key risks that will be ongoing right to the end of this project. Under the project development, obviously there's the risk for all projects around our planning improvements. We want to avoid having anything on the scheduled monument that might hold us up, and we've made that a very important must-do in our options. We are working towards minimising the programme for delivery whilst being realistic around the complexity and the number of partners and buildings we have. So those risks, we've ran through them already. Project implementation, again, standard risks there that we will be aware of and that will be managed under the governance of our project, our pillar and our programme boards to minimise those. They'll all be included within the detail of the OBC, which you'll get. So moving on to the economic case. So this is the next slide, and it follows on from Angela's background on the strategic case of the 5-case model. So an economic case, the purpose of this part of the 5-case business case is to identify the preferred option, which is the one that delivers the best value for public money within the programme funding envelope. So that's critical. We've got a programme funding envelope and we need to deliver the best value for public money in terms of our capital investment within that. So we started with a long list of 19 options. That is a long list in anybody's terms, but it's because of the number of partners. Remember, with the college, the hub, Council's Leisure Centre, DFC in the public realm and DFI in the bridge, we've 5 partners coming to that 102 million. So to take on board everyone's requirements, we started with 19 and we worked closely together in our various governance structures, project pillar and programme board, to reduce that on the basis of the must-have criteria. The must-have criteria, cutting to the quick here, car parking's critical, because at the end of the day, you know, when you have a health hub, a very, very busy health hub, there's certain requirements around how people get in and get out, particularly when they're poorly or not as mobile as they might otherwise be. So we had a very specific requirement which health will cover in car parking. The scale of the buildings, each partner has their own operational model. We had to merge those models and get the best fit. Servicing and access, again, movement and permeability for vehicles and pedestrians. So we're trying to work towards the green agenda towards our actually moving towards sustainable transport, but also ensuring proper connectivity, making sure that people can get to the site, both in terms of driving and pedestrian. So it's a tricky balance there between the requirements, as you know yourself. High quality public realm. We want to have that as far as we possibly can, but the key wording here is within the programme funding envelope. We want to maximise the regeneration impacts and we want to minimise the build on the scheduled monument, again, because of the fact that it is scheduled and we need to respect the heritage of that site and we don't want to hold ourselves up unnecessarily. So that long list to short list. On the next slide, we move down to 9. We get down to 9 that are suitable for all of the partners and ourselves, where we address the risks around affordability, inflation, the amount of car parking required, minimising land acquisition, because once we need to buy land from the third party, we are exposing ourselves to undue risk. So we got that mitigated down to 1 site only, and also moving away from building in the scheduled monument. We were doing well at that stage. Everything was going well. And then we got hit, sort of blindsided with a huge impact that affected everyone, all projects in the construction market in general, around inflation. A sort of a perfect storm, as you know, from Brexit, the Ukraine war. And it really hit the add-ons that we had to put onto our capital cost budgets, particularly from central government and CPD. The optimum bias percentage was increased, the inflation was increased, so we had to start again. The amount of work that we'd done was obviously a good starting point, but we came together very quickly with our partners, again, project pillar and programme board. And the next slide shows very briefly that we had to go right back out to 26 options and siphon that right down to 6. I'm not going to go into that slide, but there's a lot of work went into that to get the absolute maximisation of the investment package, the investment programme within the funding envelope that we were allowed. So this brought us to the preferred site configuration, which is our next slide. We'll concentrate on this one. So within the preferred site configurations, you'll see that the red line that Eamon talked you through at the start of the presentation has been extended. It's been extended to include the North West Regional College site, the existing site, which is now been allocated as the preferred option for the health hub. So we're extending the actual area of influence, the physical and geographical area of the investment up the Derry Road to that site. We're also handling an issue that was, you know, staring us right down the eyes on the North West Regional College site and what the future would have been for that site, because part of it is listed. And again, it's a building of heritage and special interest. So the fact that the health hub has now identified that as a preferred option, it means that we're not left with the risk of a derelict site of heritage interest. So we come down, we're onto the canal basin. You can see at the top corner where the academy site has the wee clump of trees around the back of it. That's the only piece of third-party land that we've had to acquire. It was on the market, so it was relatively straightforward, as these things go, to close the sale on that, and LPS obviously advised us on that. You can see the leisure centre, the Northwest Regional College site. We were able to minimise the need to move the major utilities. There was almost £1.5 million of straight up costs if we had to move the gas governor, which is a major gas interchange, which on that plan, the location of that gas governor is just between the leisure centre and the L shape of the Northwest Regional College. And we've been able to format the site that a road lies on top of that, so we don't need to spend that 1.5 million. We were able to negate the need for a multi-storey car park, because if we had stuck to the canal basin on its own, we simply didn't have the space, the square meterage, to provide the car parking that we needed for a very busy health hub. So by moving health into the Northwest Regional College site, we were able to negate the need for that car park. The multi-storey car park, which whenever we were hit with the major inflationary changes, that car park went from a possible cost of 7 million to almost 15 million, which was obviously untenable for us. So we were able to work around that. The health hub has its own surface car parking, which is ideal for them and for their usage, which I'm sure Wendy and her colleagues will come on to. Scheduled monument, you can see there's no building set aside for that, and HED are particularly happy about that, as are we, because we'll be able to make a feature of it, and we're able to keep public realm space. You come down, you'll see the red line running down John Wesley Street, and this will take us on to the footbridge from DFI that Harry will speak about, which is to connect the canal basin to the southern side of the Mourne River. And just to add that whole connectivity piece that Angela spoke about, making sure that we're really, really connecting back into the residential developments and neighbourhoods across the rest of Strabane. So my last slide here is to take you through the shortlisted options. So whenever we finally got down to that last set of options, Angela had the job of writing this up within the outline business case. These shortlisted options, again, a standard for business cases, the do nothing do minimum. Where we really get into the nitty-gritty here is the do interim. And what we have done within option 4, so that's our do intermediates, or do interim, intermediate, do interim. We've sub-options there. So we've got 4 sub-options. And this is where we really get into what we can achieve in terms of inflation optimum bias and our funding envelope. The difference is public realm. If you look at 4A, it says minimum public realm, 4B, improved public realm, enhanced is 4C, and then high quality is 4D. Our preferred option is the improved public realm, which is 4B. That allows for 7.2 million of public realm works within the overall total of 102 million for the investment programme. That's what we can afford right now, using the data and the economic statistics that we have at the moment on our inflation. If inflation goes down, we hope to be able to move further up that sliding scale of public realm options towards enhanced or high quality. But right now, where we're at is a scheme which delivers 4 capital projects: leisure, health, college and bridge, and they are all delivered. Their capital projects are delivered in their entirety. The elastic piece, if you like, is the public realm, and we're on 4B on our public realm. Thank you, councillors. I'll hand you over to my colleague, Joanne. Thank you. Sorry, to Alfie.
Thank you, Brenda. So members, the next slide, I'm going to take you through the financial element of the business case, and I'll run through it as quickly as I can. So obviously the first thing we need to do is estimate the project costs of each one of those options that Brenda has highlighted. And we've obviously done a lot of detailed work with our design team in that regard. So we have a fair degree of assurance around those construction costs at that point. But then in addition to that, depending on the nature and the scale and some of the risks that Brenda has highlighted, we need to build on a number of standard allowances into the OBC, and that's to ensure it's robust and to ensure the government will ultimately approve it. Because if these aren't in the OBC, it'll just be sent back to us. So the first one of those is optimism bias. That's really to account for unforeseen costs between now and completion. We then have to build in tender inflation and construction inflation, obviously to allow for the time that will elapse between now and the project will be completed. We obviously need to build in elements for detailed design and professional fees, as well as planning and building control fees. And finally, whilst we've mitigated a number of the significant risks up to this point in time, we have to build in a final allowance of 15% for any potential other risks that could materialise between now and completion. So there's some fairly significant figures built into the business case in that regard, members, and that I suppose we're confident in that basis that a robust OBC has been developed. So the next slide then moves on to the monetary costs of each of the options. So Brenda highlighted each of the options that we took forward for modelling within the business case, ranging from doing nothing to doing the complete maximum option on the site. And including all those allowances that I set out, all those have been costed, and you'll see in column 1 of the table, the total project costs range from 0 in the do nothing option right up to 115 million in the do maximum option. It's important to stress, members, that the second column, this is the programme outline business case. So this business case is only seeking approval for the public realm, site enabling works and land acquisition and programme management element of the spend. And you'll see that across the various options, that ranges from 0 right up to 20.5 million. So if we take that to the next slide, and members, this is a really critical component for a business case from the economist's perspective when they receive this. So in any OBC, we're spending public money, and we need to quantify and monetize the benefits associated with that expenditure. Obviously, if we get to a point where the expenditure exceeds the benefits, the OBC won't be favourably looked upon. So the aim that we're obviously trying to do is ensure that that benefit to cost ratio is maximised. So if we just follow the flow diagram, so we know firstly that the project is relocation of public facilities and significant investment in public infrastructure on the Canal Basin site. We're sure that will lead to increased footfall and domestic visitors within Strabane town centre. We expect that to catalyse and lever significant private sector investment in local enterprises and facilities. That will lead to creation of new local jobs in Strabane town centre, mainly in the areas of hospitality, retail and services. And ultimately, what the business case shows is that that will have a significant economic impact for the Strabane area. So there's obviously complex economic models which are applied to each one of those factors to arrive at a benefit to cost ratio for each option, which is the next slide. So members, obviously that's a very detailed table on the screen, but it's a critical element that the economists within central government will look at. I'm not going to go through every line of detail on it, but I'm going to point you to what the important line is from what I see, and it's the second last line, which is the benefit to cost ratio. So you'll see that ranges from 0 in the do nothing option. It increases to 1.15 to 1.60 in the do minimum options, and it increases further to 2.25 to 2.54 in the intermediate and maximum options. And essentially, members, that's the critical message. So that means that each of the meaningful options will generate a minimum of £2.25 economic return for each £1 of public sector sector investment through the city deal, and we believe that's a very positive submission as part of our outline business case. So if we can move on, please, to the next slide. So members, again, a complicated table. We're required to do this as part of the OBC, where we rank each of the options in terms of those benefit to cost ratios and in terms of risks. So there's nothing really surprising in this slide. Obviously, the higher expenditure options will result in higher benefit to cost ratios, and similarly, the low expenditure options will score highest in terms of risk, and that's basically because the project objectives will not be achieved, and that's simply a scenario that we can't accept. So just moving to my final slide. Thanks, Besley. So the conclusion of all that work, members, is that we reach a preferred option. So there's a couple of very important messages here. Number one, we still have the vision to deliver the full maximum £115 million investment on the Canal Basin site, because that will provide the biggest benefit to cost ratio. In terms of affordability, the recommended option is the £102 million 4B proposal. That will see the new health hub delivered on the existing Northwest Regional College site. It will see new leisure centre in Northwest Regional College and the Canal Basin site. It will see a new footbridge and adjacent public realm proposals to the lower side of the site, and it will see £7.26 million of investment in public realm site enabling land acquisition and project management. Critically, that all sets up a very strong case for further investment in due course, and that's an important component of the business case. So going to hand you over to the next section, which is the commercial case, to Joanne. Thank you, members.
Thanks, Alfie. Thanks, members. So I'm just going to talk you through the commercial case within the outline business case. It sets out the procurement strategy, the contractual arrangements, risk assessment, and the land transfer proposals. DOF has advised that Northern Ireland public procurement policy should be applied to all the city and growth deals across Northern Ireland. And this policy sets out the best practice approach, covering everything from health and safety to other initiatives designed to improve payment practices and fair dealing. The social, economic and environmental benefits are maximised through this procurement process, and the policy advises that a percentage of the scoring criteria within the tender process is allocated to social value. The key considerations for social value are, as per the slide, social value and inclusivity, such as training and return to work opportunities, environmental benefits, including environmental protection and supply chains that minimise carbon footprint, and also health and well-being benefits, including initiatives for employers and employees, I should say. The next slide here is outlining the land transfer, as Brenda and others have spoken about earlier. In order to facilitate the delivery of the programme, there's a requirement to purchase land from third parties as well as transfer land under public sector ownership between delivery partners. So this slide shows the extent of acquisitions and transfers, the majority of which will follow the D1 process for the disposal of surplus public sector property. Each of the delivery partners will manage the acquisition and or the transfer of lands in line with DOF and LPS guidance. And ourselves and DFC have been working closely with LPS over the last year to progress the Strabane Town Centre Regeneration Project and Programme. And we have secured funding from DFC to facilitate the purchase of the Academy site, which has already been mentioned, in advance of the financial deal by way of a loan agreement. And once the financial deal has been secured, then Council will pay this loan to DFC from the city deal monies. The next slide then, thanks. So it's envisaged there'll be 5 construction contracts through the period of the Strabane Regeneration Programme. Each project will follow its own procurement route for the appointment of design teams and contractors, and each project partner is responsible for leading on and procuring their element of the project. So each contract, the Site Enabling Works Leisure Centre, Northwest Regional College, Health and Care Hub, the pedestrian bridge will all have a separate design team and construction contract and programme. It's envisaged that the NEC4 engineering and construction contract will be used for all appointments, and the enabling works and site preparation contract should be completed in advance of the individual buildings by the project partners. Council will be leading on the procurement of the site enabling and the public realm works, and will be responsible for managing and overseeing the delivery of the wider programme, ensuring that critical milestones are met and that there are no delays in the project delivery. And we will agree the preferred procurement route with CPD in accordance with the Northern Ireland procurement policy. And the next slide provides an overview of the wider project programme. So it's quite a complex piece of work there, working together with all our project partners to develop this. There's quite a number of interdependencies between the projects, which is key to the alignment of the programme. And also the programme management will be key to the success of the project delivery. So the project procurement has been programmed, scheduled as to ensure the enabling works I've already mentioned, and the site preparation works will be completed in advance of the individual projects. The timing of the procurement, the land acquisition and transfers is critical milestones within this programme. And we're working on the assumption of receiving financial deal in spring 2024. Following this, we will commence in the procurement of the design teams, following through to the design development, planning, full public consultation on the construction. And each of the project partners will take you through their individual project programmes as well. So I'll hand back to Alfie now to take you through the financial case. Thank you.
So members, just the last couple of financial slides. So again, there's a very detailed table on the screen. This is about really the capital and revenue resources that are required to deliver the project. So they're summarised a bit more succinctly in the next slide. So if we could just jump onto that, please. So members, essentially what this table shows, you'll see in the second line, the capital expenditure that's being requested through this programme OBC is 7.298 million, which covers the public realm, site enabling works, the land acquisition and the project management costs. And all that money is to be funded through the City Deal Inclusive Future Fund. In terms of revenue expenditure, you'll notice on down in the middle section, so once the project is completed, the annual recurrent costs associated with street cleaning, grounds maintenance, those types of costs are estimated to be an additional 30k per annum, and that's a cost which will fall to council, but is probably fairly minimal in the context of the overall level of expenditure within this OBC. So if we could just move to the last slide, please. That's now. So members, this is a summary table which just summarises the overall project and most importantly all the funding sources. So as was touched on at the start, when we set out we had a £79 million project. So you'll see now very positively that has increased to a £102 million investment, and critically important, all of that can be fully funded. So the sources of funding for that, 50 million from City Deal Inclusive Future Fund, an additional 18.2 million has been invested by Health in relation to the Health Hub. There's an additional proposed 4.4 million investment from DFA through active travel budgets, and the cost of the leisure centre in addition to that will obviously fall to council. It's very important to note, members, that this slide doesn't include the additional private sector investment that we hope that the investment will catalyse. So members, all in all, it's a massive £102 million investment, and critically for the purposes of the OBC submission, we have a source of funding for each one of those components. So I'll now pass to Eamon to conclude. Thank you.
Thanks, Alfie. And if we can just go on to the next slide, please. So members, obviously, something as complex as this requires a very detailed management structure in order to ensure that we meet all our obligations, that we work with our partners, that we work with the central government. So it's proposed that moving forward, the strategic hub, which is the project management office, will cover areas such as the project governance, finance assurance, the technical coherence, between all of the partners, any legal issues, communications, and obviously the administration. And then on just directly below that, we have projects which are being led directly by council. So this covers the entirety of CDD. And council will provide project management to its individual projects surrounding Regeneration, obviously, the Central Riverfront, Vault City, DNA, and Smart Digital. And on the light green, you can see the partner projects, and they will have their own project management structures again, and very detailed. So the health hub, the college, the pedestrian bridge are all covered, but everything connects back to the central hub. And as part of that, members, as I say, we're required to look at the overall structure. So each of the partners will all have their own project boards to deliver their individual projects, including council. There will be a Strabane Town Centre Regeneration Programme Board, and then that will report up into the Pillar Board, and these are parts of the existing governance structure. The Strategic Hub, obviously, everything reports to that, and that reports to the CDD programme, and the CDD programme board reports in through to council through governance and strategic planning. And members will be pleased that this is the last slide in management case and the last slide in the presentation. So obviously listed there are all the areas that have to be included in the management case. Colleagues have spoken to them in detail, so I'm not going to go through them all, but it all forms part of the case that we are making to demonstrate to central government that we have the capacity as a council to deliver all of these programmes in conjunction with our project partners. And ultimately, there will be a monitoring and evaluation framework because we'll have to demonstrate as we go through this the project benefits and what is being delivered for the entirety of the £102 million investment. So members will be pleased that that is the final slide on this. So thank you, John.
Okay, thank you, Eamon, Brenda, Angela, and Joanne, and indeed Alfie. Members, that concludes the first bit of today's meeting. As you can see, and I think as we've said before, City Deal is not for the faint-hearted. This is an incredibly complex piece of work, but then you would expect so when we're talking about over £100 million of investment. So hopefully, what this opening piece has done is give you a complete overview of the totality of the project. Through you, Deputy Mayor, where we're going to suggest a short pause here at this point for members to ask any questions or comments at this stage. And then we will move on to an update from each of the project partners.
Yep. It's great. Thank you, John. Again, thanks to everyone there for that presentation. So I will open up the floor now for any questions or comments. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, everyone, for the presentations. First, I would just like to say I think that I have to congratulate all the officers on this. I'm pleased it's starting to look real. I think if we had been waiting on the old Strabane Council, we would still be waiting a very long time. So I have to congratulate the leadership of getting it to the stage. Come back to just some of the stuff that Alfie raised and the concerns. You know, as like this is over quite a number of years, and we're working off, you know, like a budget of 102 if we're going for this preferred option, which I think I would be supportive of. But that, you know, the sliding scale and inflation and interest rates, all that, that's very hard to control over a long period. And when we see going up into possibly 2028, 29, over 5 years, if we look back 5 years and see the costs, and then we see the increased, then we're into the stuff. So my concerns is, how do we get it moving as quick as we can possibly get it moving so that we at least minimise that risk? and I see our time bound, as I say, over that period, possibly 8 to 10 years, whatever, that if we were looking at 4, would be very much more manageable, that risk. So, and I know I'm sort of asking an impossible question, but the question has been, how do we get it moving? How do we, and this is going to create quite a bit of interest in Strabane, because the interest being we've been waiting for 10 years plus on this, and we've had possible headlines, that says this is happening, this is happening. How do we make it happen? And make it happen now is the $1 million question, or the $102 million question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gower, pass over to John.
Well, it is the single biggest question. So first of all, how we get it moving is to ensure that we've got the most robust scheme that we can possibly put into the business case process, with all of the partners subscribing to it, and the greatest amount of detail that we can provide. And that's what we're hoping to assure you today we've done. I mean, the scale and enormity of work that has gone into this to date is quite staggering. So to get it moving, that's the first thing we've had to do. And that is now, as I said, hopefully endorsement today, but it's already in the system by a couple of days. And there are 4 cases, 3 of which are in the system, 1 of which has to go into the system. So getting them into the system, with this degree of rigor is, without a doubt, the first part. The second part is to then drive forward with government to try and get the appraisal of these business cases done as quickly as possible, and to answer the questions that come back. Now, we know that is a very elastic process, but the better the input, hopefully the quicker the output. And that's why we've spent so much time on the input. We're aiming for financial deal spring, early summer. We're hoping, as we've said through business cases members, that if we're not in a position to have the totality of a financial deal, that a phased financial deal can be provided. But that takes us into that semi-political space and into the macro politics that's happening at the moment as to whether that's possible or not possible. We're certainly working with the central government colleagues. We can't get a clear answer on whether financial deal is possible without an executive, but certainly it's not impeding the process at this minute in time. But there will come a point whether when financial deal can either be delivered without an executive or requires an executive. So that is a bigger conversation, probably bigger than today. But our objective is to make sure that we've driven this forward as quickly as possible to enable that to happen. In the interim period, we then have to have a significant conversation around delivery resourcing. So you'll have seen me highlight that in the various reports. We're beginning as a team, now that the business cases have been properly constructed, to look at resourcing post-financial deal and how those teams will be established, how many officers at different levels across all of the partners are going to be needed, how that works, how that hangs together, and how that moves off. And all of that with an eye to getting that delivery moving as quickly as possible after financial deal is signed. And that's what the project program is based on. So all of that has been worked through, looking at that. Obviously, that all has to be sense checked regularly throughout the process to see where there's slippage, the implications of slippage, how that might be overcome. As I've said, it's hugely complex, but there's an associated risk register with all of this that's attached to all of this that we will keep updated and keep working on. But in terms of those key next steps, this is step 1 today. It's not actually step 1, it's probably step 5. But we're currently at this step, and it's a very important step to get these into the system and for them to be as robust as we think they currently are, and then to move forward from there. So I hope that answers the question as best I can.
Thank you, John. You content? How's it going? Yep. Councillor Box.
Gurmugget, Deputy Mayor, and on behalf of Sinn Féin, can I thank the officers who have presented today, very, very detailed, and the report also that we got on our packs. I think it just shows the scale of the work, and obviously this is my first term in council, so I'm not aware of all that has gone before now, but from meetings that we held with officers when the report came into governance, we've seen very clearly the scale of work that you had to undertake. Obviously, there will be challenges that come down the line. This is a marking post or a pillar in a very long process. But I think the willingness that all partners have shown to be able to adapt and create something new that isn't a far cry away from what was originally intended, but just shaped differently, obviously, to get over the hurdles that we've seen already. I think the ability and the willingness for all partners to work together will take us over whatever maybe other unforeseen circumstances come, and whether that be in relation to finances or in relation to planning or anything else. I think it's great that we have partners with us today in the public gallery, and I look forward to hearing from them. But I would just urge at this point that we maintain that relationship between council and all partners to make sure that we get it going and see it right through to completion. Particularly as a young person, I can't wait, hopefully, to see the benefits of having particularly that skills base part with the college and the education part slap bang in the middle of Strabane Town Centre. I think it will create a hub of activity for people, for young people in particular, and older people who I know go back to education a lot more now than maybe they would have in the past. And the benefits that will have then on the town centre as a whole, the benefits are multifaceted in terms of the projects individually, but also how they combine then to provide a positive for Strabane Town and further afield. I think one of the most important parts, and one of something that I listen to quite often whenever we meet with businesses, was held within the business case, that a lot of the businesses that were spoken to just highlighted the fact that this part of Strabane Town gives absolutely nothing to Strabane Town as it stands at the minute, and I think anything that we can do, but obviously what we can see, what we're going to do, or hopefully going to do through City Deal, will make that a key part of Strabane Town and right out until the Derry Road. And I think in some ways, while it wasn't the original plan, I think it's maybe the better option now that we are stretching right out to the council offices, right out to the college, because the wider that we make the project, the more of Strabane that it is benefiting, the more people that it's benefiting, and taking that kind of town centre approach right out to the residential area that we all know exists there already on the Derry Road. I do think for some people who are listening on today, maybe this is the first time that they will have seen so much detail around the projects. It might for them feel like no buses come and then all buses come at once, because we are waiting so long on the leisure centre, and now along with the leisure centre we're encompassing a health hub, the college, and all the rest that's going along with it. But I think it's fantastic to see. The one thing that I would kind of air some caution on, just from my own perspective at the minute, is that it talks about, how interdependent for success in relation to the partners all these projects are. And I think there was one part in particular in relation to that, if there was to be some kind of hold up with the college moving out of the existing building, that would hold up health. That's the only thing that I kind of have a bit of grievance about at the minute, is while the maximum benefit is to be seen from all these projects working together and being interdependent, it also could be the fatal flaw that if one doesn't move as quickly as we would like, then it holds up the next part. And then you have all these, I hate to keep using these transport puns, but all these buses sitting waiting that are ready to take off but can't go anywhere because the one in front of it hasn't moved in the time that we would want. But I commend again officers and all partners on the information given us to today. It's very, very exciting, I have to say, all of the projects, but when you put them together, the excitement builds even further. So I look forward to seeing where we go next, and what also that was touched on about, how we get to financial deal. I hope that either before or after Christmas, as it is looking more and more likely at the minute, that we won't have to worry about who's signing it off, because there will hopefully be ministers in place to do that. So commend you all once again, and thank you very, very much for the update.
Thank you. Councillor Boggs, I don't think there was any questions on there for the officers to respond to, so I'll move to Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. On behalf of the SDLP, thanks to all of the officers who have presented this far and for their work in such a huge project. I think what we've seen over this last hour and a half is the blueprint to transform Strabane Town Centre. And I think that's something that we all should be excited about. Like Councillor Gallagher, I suppose I have some concerns around, and I appreciate the scale of what it is that we're trying to do and trying to deliver. Therefore, it's going to take a wee bit of time to get to that point. But if you look back, 8-10 years ago, people would have never predicted a global pandemic, a cost of living crisis, and prices soaring through the air. And I'm slightly nervous around now and the delivery point of this project, because of that, I suppose, unpredictability around costs of materials and one thing and another. And I'm just wondering what security is embedded there if something like that was to crop up again, and hopefully it doesn't. There was also talk there around the contracts, and I think you mentioned there were going to be 5 construction contracts running to deliver this project. I'm puzzled as to why that is. In my head, all I can think of is that the partners have their own, I suppose, structures within their own organisations, and that may be the reason. But I would just like a wee bit of clarification if it is. It seems to me like an awful lot of red tape in terms of having 5 individual contracts. But if that's because of their own governance structures, then there's no way around that. In relation to it, Deputy Mayor, I'm sure you're not looking for suggestions at this time, but I think in terms of the preferred option of 4B, we're kind of aiming middle of the road and hoping, if needs be, and if it becomes available, that we can push on that wee bit further. I think that's a very safe approach that we're adapting. I think it will show transformation, but it will also show that there is that wee bit further if we can manage it, and I think that's something that should be welcomed. I look forward to hearing from the partners and their update, but I think at this point, a lot of people within Strabane will be pleasantly surprised once this news gets out there. I know that we have met with officers on a number of occasions around this, and particularly when it came to governance earlier in the year. And I think when you sit down and you actually digest the amount of work it is going on and what it is that we're trying to achieve, I think it's tremendous where we're at now. I would like to see it very quickly pushing, as I'm sure you would as well, pushing on to the next stage. But I suppose that's a process that we have to go through. But from this point, on behalf of the SDLP group, you have our support, and we stand ready waiting to see what it is that we're required to do next. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. I just passed to John now to answer any of those queries.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I think the first question was really the discomfort or bit of uncomfortableness with risk. Same broad question. We're all concerned about risk, and I think we've taken you through some of the work we've done around that, in particular Alfie's table, which highlighted the optimism bias percentage that's in there. A percentage is in there for construction inflation, a percentage is in for material inflation. There's actually a percentage of 15% against risk itself. Part of the challenge at the minute, and we've never been in this space, we know from council projects, obviously, that we've talked about this, but if we go back a number of years ago, this degree of risk never had to be countenanced for capital projects. I think some of my colleagues from the other organisations would say the same. We almost run the risk of killing a project off at the minute because so much risk has to be built in to projects, and that was part of the problem that we faced 8-10 months ago when we had a fixed envelope and so much inflationary risk, construction risk, actual risk, optimism bias, risk had to be built in, that the whole viability of the totality of what we're trying to achieve became questionable. But we are working with CPD. We are working with the indicators that are there at the moment. We have profiled, and it is a risk in itself. The projects are so interdependent, but we've profiled the programme for build of each of the projects, and from that programme for build, looked at the inflationary risk over each of the years between now and then, worked off the indicators that are being published and available and being guided by CPD, and hence we come up with the figures. Now, obviously, those are all, to some extent, crystal ball figures, but they're crystal ball figures that are based on published data. They're based on guidance, and should they change, then obviously things do have to change. But we would hope that over the next number of years, things are going to become a little more certain than they have been at the moment. But clearly, if we're entering into some other form of uncharted territory, then things will have to be looked at again. But we can only plan for what we know at this minute in time. I hope that gives some sense of the work that's been done around that. In terms of the number of contracts, it is about breaking it down into manageable chunks and into contracts that each of us are responsible for. So that's the key reason for that, and also the timing, because each of them is progressing at slightly different rates and slightly different timeframes. So hopefully that answers, unless any of my colleagues want to add to that. No? Okay.
Great, thank you, John. Councillor Raymond Barr online.
Thank you, Chair. My question was around risks as well, and the more that's been answered, but just like to thank the officers there for the presentation. The presentation illustrated vividly the current state of Strabane, and it doesn't make for pretty reading. There's no doubt the Salinity project, coupled with the Strabane Public Realm project, will give the town, I would say, the most significant enhancement in its history. But however, given the disappointment experienced, the delays to the public realm work and the problems with the riverine, that would be a real slap in the teeth, I suppose, if this didn't progress, but hopefully that'll not be the case. I'm just wondering, is there any chance of getting a hard copy of the presentation?
Yep, that'll be sent out, Councillor Barr. Thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, sincere thanks for the presentations that we've received. I do share the concerns that others have had with regard to the timescale. We already know that in the time from initiation to now, we've already, or yous have already been tweaking away at the particular project. So there is that fear of what will happen going forward. I mean, I think in terms of how long does it take for the Omagh Enhanced Hospital to appear, or even the Southwest Acute? It didn't take 10 years. So I have concern when I think I heard a comment that, we could be up to 10 years in this, and I hope that's not the case. The original plan was the 3 services on the one side, the Canal Basin site, and I understand the rationale that has occurred with the health hub moving to Northwest College. And again, that presents the issue. The Northwest College provision on the Canal Basin side has to be ready before the health hub can move, or the work can begin on the other. So again, there's the time factor kicking in, and I hope that can be addressed. Also, I suppose, just to remind people, this isn't just for town residents, and the Strabane councillors will know this. It's for Strabane and its entire hinterland, the services that are coming in here. And I welcome that at last we have a solution to the leisure centre scenario, which, unlike you, Paul, I've been aware of for a considerable length of time. Riversdale is long past its sell-by date. I particularly welcome also the second footbridge It's well enough known, my opinion was that that should have been the first footbridge that was in sight for the benefit of the entire town centre, and that's very welcome. Going forward then, the initial red line that was presented to us was the canal basin. There's a blight on the edge of that. Are there any plans to deal with that blight, namely the mill site? It's great talking about all this enhancement of the public arena and all, but there is still that blight, and I suppose it's disappointing that that could not be brought into this overall project. It could have been a tremendous enhancement, but perhaps somebody can give me some indication of what might be a way forward there. And I'm assuming the tire depot was sorted out. I don't know. The other one then, the 102 million is of course a catalyst. And I think other sums have been mentioned there, departmental input, etc. So we're talking about a heck of a lot more than 102 million, maybe double that, when you take the full packages together. So I'm just hoping that that can be maintained from the partners. And that they are not going to face difficulties down the road, whether with their particular home departments or with events, nearby events. So we're hoping that that doesn't happen. Private investment has been mentioned. Is there any indication of potential private investment going forward at this stage? Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. I'll pass over to John.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Well, I suppose there's a couple of questions there that I can really only deal with in sort of general terms, and it's in relation to the private sites and the potential of private investment. The whole purpose, or one of the key purposes of City Deal, in particular in this scheme, is to try to drive private sector investment. Where there has been a faulting private sector, where there's been a private sector that doesn't see a potential return on its investment, where the private sector who is not willing to put in significant money in particular sites. And we have seen market failure in that part of Strabane Town Centre for decades. And there are a number of key sites, not just the one that springs to mind immediately. There are at least 5 key sites surrounding the canal site that there has been market failure on for a very long time. So the team is keeping in touch with private sector owners in and around the area, with the wider business community, with the bid in Strabane Town Centre, and as this project moves towards financial deal, wider public consultation. Growing sense of realisation that over £100 million is going to be spent in Strabane Town Centre, and how that might change the dynamic or the view that the private sector has of those sites that surround it. And ultimately, that's the objective, to then make private investment commercially viable for a range of opportunities on those sites that for decades have remained underutilised. So that is the objective of the scheme. And we are as insofar as we can, working with the constraints that we have, keeping that broader business community aware of that opportunity. And as this project moves towards financial deal, that effort will significantly ramp up.
Thank you, John. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair, Deputy Mayor, and thanks everybody for the update today. I think it represents exciting times for the people of Strabane and that area of the council district. My question, well, it's about the specific presentation, but it's going to apply to every aspect, every sort of City Deal project that we have, and it's about the risk that we have incorporated into the figures, into the projections, and Councillor Tierney's already asked about it. So we've opted in this particular programme of capital, etc. We have optimism bias, at 20%, tender inflation at over 13, construction inflation at over 5, risk itself at over 15. That equates to 53% or thereabouts. And like, that's sensible, that's prudent. I think it's right to expect the unexpected. But the flip side is also possible as well, where we could do these projects for 70 million quid and we could have 32 million quid underspent. So I think we need to be mindful of that. I think it's right to prepare for the rainy day, the worst case scenario. But if there is some sort of stability, especially in the economy over the next number of years, we could get really great value for money out of these projects. And that could help deliver the extent of public realm that was sort of discounted initially. So in terms of the wider projects, you know, all the city-based ones, you know, the riverfront regeneration, etc., are those the same sort of figures we're looking at regarding optimism bias, etc., or is that specific to the Strabane project? Have we looked? Is that the risk we are expecting right across the suite of city projects? Because I think there is an opportunity there to do these with a lower budget if the circumstances arise. So that would be my question. Thank you.
You guys are brilliant, John.
It's a really good question. It's one we have grappled with many times in the process. I really hope we're in that position. Experience has shown that you rarely are. In terms of complex capital projects, OBs tend to disappear like snow off a ditch as projects progress for various different reasons. I suppose the broad answer to the question is that where we can, we have built into the business cases scalability so that if there is more value for money, that we can move from an option 4B in this instance up towards the option 5, which would be a very desirable place to be, clearly. And we'll be doing that for each of the projects. So Central Riverfront will have a similar construct to it as will the Wall City project. So there'll be a kind of an intermediate pitch for the money that's currently available, but room to expand and grow should there be better value for money had than the worst case scenario planned for. In terms of the quantums of the OB, the risk, etc., some of them are transferable. Others are different. So it depends on the nature of the project, whether the OB sits at 20%, 15%, or 25%. And there's a sliding scale. There's a mechanism whereby the type of project, the progress that has been made with the design dictates best practice in terms of the percentage OB that's applied at any particular moment. I don't know if I've phrased that correctly, but that's broadly the approach. Maybe got some other capital colleagues cringing in the public gallery with that explanation, but I think that's broadly right. So some of the projects, the approach is the same, but the percentages for each of the major city deal projects will be slightly different depending on the type of project.
Thank you, John. Alderman Kerrigan online.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for allowing me in. And just to welcome the presentation that's been given. To be fair, no particular question. The other questions have already been touched on because other members have raised the issues there. You know, in regards to car parking, in regards to, as Alderman Hussey's touched on, the mill that's sitting there and behind Lyndon Robinson's there, or what in reference to just, you know, and the condition hits in and it's not within our red line. But no, it's welcome. It's good to see the level of detail. It's good to see the level of the report that has been given, and hopefully this level of investment into Strabane. But again, as has been referenced, you know, Strabane is the market town there, and given the level of, you know, there's still a lot of trade coming into the town. You know, when we don't have now banks and like a Castlereagh and Newton Stewart anymore, you know, people are still coming into the town to do their banking, do their business. And to be fair, a lot of people would have been parking at the canal basin to go over to Ulster Bank or into some of the banks and done messages in the town. So I'm glad to see that the car parking isn't entirely been wiped out in that, you know, and it's got to be factored in. Yes, it's for the benefit of the town there, but it's a wider countryside around about as well. So no, as I say, it is very welcome to see the level of work that has taken place. And again, when you do see that the risk has been touched upon by other members as well, but you do see that the level of contingency that's built in, and hopefully as we will maybe have a wee bit of positive outcome here in regards to, as Councillor Farrell has touched upon, and we may well be underspending here, or we mightn't just need as much of this built-in contingency, but we can hope and pray in regards to that. But no, very much appreciated, and just welcome the report today. No particular question. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. Councillor Hart online.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to thank officers for the comprehensive report and presentation. I'm sure there's been a significant amount of work that's gone on to it to get it to this stage. And I would concur wholeheartedly with what my colleague Councillor Paul Boggs spoke about. I'm not going to go over all what he outlined so eloquently. Just an observation, as I made my way yesterday from the retail park at Asda roundabout up through the town centre, I went from a very, very busy and bustling retail park to a very, very quiet town centre. So this new project, I think, will breathe new life into the town centre and in turn bring additional vibrancy to the centre. Along with the possibility of new business opportunities and indeed assist current businesses. So I see it as a very positive and very exciting for the people of Strabane and district. So Gordon Mayogut.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hart, just before we pass back to John to introduce the next set of speakers, just as a Strabane man, just to say, look, that's fantastic to see, and it is very exciting to see. It isn't first that it could take up to 10 years, but I suppose Rome wasn't built in a day or so. But hopefully, as we say, look, that this can be sped up as quick as possible to see, because people don't really believe it until we see diggers on the ground. And then like, right, there is something definitely happening here. So whenever we see that happen, but look, one quick question that could have been answered from the presentation. The canal area car parking is all free. Will it remain free when the project is done? Because it's free at the minute.
That'll have to be something that's considered at final business case stage. And I don't think it's something, we certainly have not built in a model that is anything different from what currently exists at this moment in time.
That's grand. Thank you, John. I'll just pass back to you now, John, sure, to introduce the next. So John, yep. Yes, at this stage, I'll just take a 5-minute cover break just for anybody that needs it before we start the next ones. So moving on now, we're going to have speakers now from the Western Health and Social Care Trust. We've got Wendy McLaughlin, Keith Hegarty and Emer McCauley. So you're all very welcome. I'll pass it over to yourselves.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and good afternoon, members of Council. My name is Emer McCauley. I'm the Executive Director of Finance, Contracts and Capital Development for the Western Trust. I've brought with me today the Assistant Director of Capital Development, Keith Hegarty, as well as Wendy McLaughlin, who is the Project Manager for the Strabane Care Centre project as part of the Strabane Regeneration Pillar for the City Deal programme. And I'm just going to give you a very short introduction from a health and social care strategic context in relation to this project. Wendy McLaughlin will then talk you through the detail of the slides. We're delighted to be here today. It is very exciting. A member mentioned the word exciting. It is a very exciting project. And we're here to inform you about the progress in relation to the business case for the Strabane Health and Care Centre as part of this programme. And we are delighted that the Health and Care Centre has been recognised as one of the core projects, together with the Public Realm Scheme, considered to be a key element for the regeneration of the Strabane Town Centre. And this really demonstrates that this programme recognises the link between population health outcomes and social, economic and environmental factors. For health and social care in Northern Ireland, this project forms part of the Department of Health programme for primary care infrastructure development. And this aims to ensure suitable accommodation for both primary and community services to meet current and future needs of the population. The total investment in this project will be £40 million, which is made up of a combination of funding from City Deal as well as a commitment from the Department of Health. And the aim of the project in Strabane is to support delivery of high quality integrated health and social care services, gathering up the range of health and social care services which are already in place in the area and bringing them together in a one-stop shop model on a single location site. So the opportunity to really improve services for the population in that area is considerable. And members, you might be also interested to know that this project also supports the Department of Health plans for the implementation of an integrated health and social care model in Northern Ireland, a model which will bring together partners across all sectors to improve health outcomes and equalities for our population. So to provide more detail, I'm going to pass to Wendy McLaughlin. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. The presentation that came first has been really helpful for us because the model that we followed, I think I referred to as a 5-case model. We've done the exact same in our business case as well. And when we put our business case together, the focus was very much on the need for a health hub or a health and care centre, we would call it sometimes as well. So it's proven the need for that. But then when we did the options, think about that in the context of the wider benefits. So the way we've said it is that we've done the OBC, but the strategic case there, the business case that was just chatted through, will be there for the reader as well. I'm thinking about Department of Health, for example, when they're reviewing it and giving us support. So it's just to kind of mention it. But what we've actually done today is try to kind of lift out the key points for you. So my presentation is, or our presentation is, much shorter than what was said before, but it's just for assurance sake, we've followed the same rigor and all that details in the business case. Okay. So why are we doing this? We've called a case for change, which relates back to the strategic context. Sorry, thank you. So case for change, it's really about transformation. So there already is a programme called the Primary Care Infrastructure Development Programme that the Department of Health have been launching and rolling out. So this is one of the projects that's a kind of regional programme as well, and it's all about transformation. So we use the term shift left.
Sorry, did anyone online please make sure that your microphone is muted, please?
Assembly. People's Assembly.
Mr. McHugh. Mr. McHugh, your microphone's on.
Okay, thank you. So a case for change, it's about transformation, looking at putting services in the community, strengthen the services, building teams around GPs. So MDT is multidisciplinary working. So kind of looking at multidisciplinary type clinics, one-stop shop as well. We also kind of need to think about the physical space that we've got in Strabane. So this is all about improving the accommodation that we have already. It's also about growing for the future. So it's thinking ahead about what we need and making sure our space is flexible and adaptable for change. So that's very much our focus, and also making sure our buildings and our services are accessible for communities. And then obviously there's a big opportunity in this development through a city deal for wider benefits, which I think the team before us kind of talk through quite clearly. So that's really why we're doing this. The terminology then is spending objectives. So this is really what is your aims or objectives. So there's 4 things listed down there. So it's all about improvement. So it's improving quality, improving access, but it's also about delivering the policies the Department of Health has set out for the Trust in terms of the direction of health and social care services. And again, as I said, improving the built environment that we have. And the current position is sitting on the right-hand side. We've separate buildings at the minute. There's 3 in particular we're looking at. Strabane Health Centre is obviously the predominant one. We also have a Mornside practice as well, with quite a number of GPs in that centre. And we have a mental health facility on Railway Road. So that's the 3 buildings that we're focusing on, kind of bringing together. All of them are relatively old, about 40-year-old building is Strabane Health Centre, or lease facilities. So we want to try and do something a bit better, more modern, more fit for what way we want to work in the future. All of them, I don't know if you're familiar with Strabane Health Centre in particular, but it's really busy. It's cramped for space. It's very difficult for outreach and clinics, etc. So we want to try and improve that. And just to prove, as I said, access for people to buildings. So thinking about growth and flexibility, that's what we're trying to do. And also more sustainable buildings, thinking about the environmental conditions that we all work within as well. So next slide then is very much focusing on what are we actually proposing. So on the left-hand side, that's the square meters of space that we have at the minute. So we're moving from 3,100 square meters to 5,690. That's our kind of projected space at the minute. So roughly we're doubling our space. And in doing that, we're meeting the most modern space standards for health and care centre type community spaces. And that's our driver, plus building and growth for the future as well. There is a list of services there which describe what we anticipate this building is going to be doing for us. So you can see it's quite wide ranging. So it's really pulling together the services that we have at the minute, but making sure that the building works in a way that we can use it in the future. So that's really what that is. In terms of options, we had a long list of options, and like the team previous to us, there was about 12 options, I think. We shortlisted them down into a number of options. We looked at new build solutions, refurb solutions, combination of that, split site, single site. We asked LPS to do a site search for us, to look at any alternative sites again. So we assessed those. We then assessed all those against those objectives that we talked about previously, the spending objectives. We also looked at cost and risk. And I think there's been quite an extensive conversation about cost and risk. And you'll see from our business case, when you have a chance to look through it, that all those factors like inflationary factors, etc., risk factors have been built into our costs as well. And the range of costs we had was from 19 million to 49 million. So just to give you a sense of that, I should say the 19 million was what we call our do minimum option. So that would be to fix Strabane Health Centre as best we can. But it's a very tight site, so there's no scope for expansion really there. So we wouldn't deliver all of that 5,600 square meters. So that's why that cost is low. But it's important to say that even if we did very little, we still have a big amount of money to spend here for the population of Strabane. And again, then thinking about the wider benefits. So we looked at all those options. It's thinking about, but what else can this do as part of a partnership approach? So next slide, please. So the outcome of that, and I think we've referred to it previously, is our preferred option is the current Northwest Regional College site. So that is quite a long description, but it's just to state this is the option we've described. So what we're proposing is that we are going to refurbish the listed building. and use it for a more administrative, kind of less clinical need type space. And that's about, from memory, about 1,800 square metres. But we would then will have a new build positioned with it and integrated with it to accommodate the rest of our need. So roughly it's about a third refurb, 2/3 new build. And we work as a capital development team in the Trust, we work really closely with Health Estates in the Department of Health, who roll out all our healthcare projects. So that's where that kind of indicative drawing has come from, just to kind of illustrate what that might look like. But they are very confident that we can get this to work, and it'll be a really good option for us as well. So they obviously contributed to that assessment. So that's what we're really proposing. The cost is, as Emer said, is almost 40 million. And we hope to get work very much with the team here to get some of that funded through City Deal, which is 21.5 million, and the balance, the Department of Health. But it's important to point out that it's not just capital costs we'll be seeking approval for in the OBC, it's also the revenue costs in terms of heat, light, power rates, and that's about 1.1 million. So we'll be looking for support from the Department of Health for that as well. Next slide. So in terms of the commercial case, going back into the kind of business case terminology that we talked through before, there's 4 main procurements for us. One is the land. So obviously integration, partnership working is absolutely critical. So we will work closely with the college as part of the City Deal programme to manage that's transition, obviously following the proper procurement rules and land transfer rules for that. So we would intend to progress that as the project develops. We then need to procure what we call an ICT, a design team. So autumn 25 is a timeline really for us, we think, at the moment. And then obviously the big thing is the actual construction programme, and it's already been picked up. For us, we can only start constructing this when the new college building has been built and the team have moved. So again, the need for really close integration of those teams is critical, and we're very, very happy to do that. It obviously needs to be done, and it's started already. So that's that. And then equipment, we don't think there's going to be anything very, very specialist here. So we do have the expertise in-house to manage all those kind of procurement routes. Next slide. So in terms of management of this, the Trust will take ownership of this project and make sure it's delivered. So governance and reporting structures is obviously really, really important to make sure it's done properly for that amount of money, particular, plus it's such a vital project. So this is really just to give assurance that process has already started. There is input from the Trust to the City Deal programme at very senior level, right down to project managers like myself. So that will continue, and we'll also make sure, as well as working with the City Deal team and the council, that work is fully embedded in our own structures for capital development, because obviously our team manage all of the Trust project, not just this particular one. So we already have a governance structure for that, which is fairly well established, and we'll make sure this project's delivered properly as part of that. Next slide, please. So management control plan is really programme. So it's to give just people a sense of the rollout of that. So you can see there's quite a lengthy design programme, but we have an opportunity to do it if our construction is a 28, approximately late 28 running to early 31, where we'll probably be the last project, I think, in the programme because of that dependency. But again, through close working relationships, if there's opportunities to deliver that faster, we will certainly make sure we're in a position to do that. And we do see the benefit of having early input from a design team as well to make sure that our needs are fully reflected in the overall programme plan, because we know you'll need an input from us for that. Final slide is really just to say where we are. So we've had the business case done. I think it was finished in September, and it came into the City Deal board, was approved. It went through our own trust processes, our own corporate management team and our own trust board in November. It was ratified there. So there's full approval for the trust, full approval from the City Deal board, and it's with the various departments now for consideration. So we're waiting patiently for queries to come back and deal with the numerous issues, and we'll put maximum effort quickly to get those resolved and through. So that's really all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So again, I'll open it up to the floor for any questions. Councillor Gallagher.
Again, I don't have any questions. I would just like to thank you for the presentation. And again, like the previous presentation, you seem to be fairly well advanced and very well across it. So I would like to congratulate the team and congratulate you for having the wisdom to work in partnership with the council to see this getting delivered. So I'm crawling here, you know, but I think it's, you know, in your presentation, you've says that you have the wisdom, you know, that what's currently there is not for purpose. And I'm working with all the team in relation to the benefits of coming together in partnership. So well done, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Boggs.
Gurmugget, Deputy Mayor. And again, as well, like the previous presentation, thank you very much to the representatives. Very informative. And I think what we touched on around that joined up approach between services coming onto one site. It was only at the last committee or the committee before that in Health and Communities that we had the trust on and the department talking about the pressures that they face, particularly in this council area. And one of the questions that I posed was on obviously directly linked to Strabane and the pressures that we face. While the building particularly at the town practice there in Upper Main Street, while the actual building might be tight, services are even tighter, and trying to avail of those services can be at times very, very challenging through no fault of the staff that are in that building. But that's just the way that it is. So I don't think there'll be anybody will be asking why there is a need for a new health hub in Strabane. I think it's clear for all to see. If you look at SPPG, and Western Urgent Care and the cries that they have in terms of out of hours care, right then through to day-to-day GP services. So it's very, very welcome. I don't want to be negative. Can I just ask in relation to the funding, if there's anybody who could ask where is that coming from? Is that committed to? Is that still being sought after? Or do we, is that reliant on a minister or a permanent secretary making a decision, or is that committed, saying that we've got this far in terms of the whole City Deal project? But thank you very much, I suppose, for coming on board and being a part of it. And like I cautioned in the last one, I hope that we continue, both as a council and as project participants, that we continue that engagement to get these things across the line. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Boggs. Now, that's over to yourself. Sure, do you want to address that?
Yeah, thanks for your comments. And obviously, we're all aware how overdue development in GP, particularly GP primary care services in Strabane are. In relation to the funding, the funding in this is part of the primary care infrastructure development programme, which has already been agreed. And that programme has already been agreed by the previous health minister. And this development at Strabane will be part of tranche 3 of that development. There are 4 tranches in all. The first tranche, you'll know, our Lisnaskey Health and Care Centre was part of that. There's 4 or 5 regional health hubs development. Our second one is the city side one here at Fort George, but hopefully this is in the third one. The funding has been agreed, the principle has been agreed, but like any public sector body, the timing needs, same as this city, we can't be 100%, but the principle and the approval has been agreed already.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thanks very much for your presentation. Like others have already pointed out, this is quite exciting. I have just one question, and I wrote this question down on your first slide. I think you kind of answered it on the last one, and I think it follows on from Councillor Boggs's question, and it's more around how secure is the commitment from the Department for Health. I know we're talking 2028 in terms of construction, to begin construction, and that's obvious because of all the other elements that have to make way for your project. But as was pointed out on the first number of presentations, a lot can change between now and 2028. And I would just wonder how secure that's come up with this from the Department for Health. And I think they haven't even rubber stamped this yet, if I'm reading that last slide right. So I know you're going to struggle to answer how secure and unsecure sum of money is, but what's your feeling within the department? And in relation to, once this is confirmed, are we good to go, or could things crop up between now and then? Thank you.
No, I'm sure you're very aware how reluctant we are to say we're 100% agreed and we know everything's coming. I wish we could in the world. But it's current health policy. There's a current draft 10-year plan for capital. I know it sounds a long way away, but for us in health, some of these projects are 15, 20 years in the gestation and the development. So it's not long. That's why we work off a 10-year plan. It's on that 10-year plan. And to be on that 10-year plan, we feel we know it has to happen. And I think our department knows it has to happen. It's just a matter of this helps us get it as soon as we can get it. And that's really the advantage of this for us.
Okay. Okay. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the presentation. One of my questions was really preempted. With regard to that particular issue of being able to move on site, etc., I noted, it's very hard to see, but I reckon some of that UV build is to the rear of the current and on the green to the left. You know, is there potential for that to actually go ahead of the decanting of the college? Would be the first one. The second one, you mentioned the revenue costs, but you're combining 3 sites. How do the revenue costs on the new site compare to the old revenue costs on the previous sites? And I presume that there'll be energy savings, etc. Admin savings perhaps as you move through there as well. The departmental approval, I'd be weary on this one as well. And it's not from the department approval, but it's the approval of the business case. I mean, we have a mental health facility at Omagh Enhanced, still sitting waiting for the departmental approval of their business case. Personnel, private practices, GP practices are of course private. Is there a guarantee that the new facility will not find itself in the situation that some GP centres are finding themselves in currently, indeed in this city? And one final one, one area that I noticed not covered in what's being brought together is dentistry. 16 years ago, my brother warned me that there was an approaching big issue coming down the line with regard to dentistry. He was Dean of Dentistry at QUB. So would there be any potential, or is there any thought of including that particular element within the overall provision? Thank you.
Thank you for those questions, and maybe not in that order, but I'll work backwards. Now, in relation to dentistry, there is dental provision put in there. Obviously, there's only so much you can do in a localised health and care centre hub. But one of the key objectives of these health and care centre hubs is to provide flexible space, because as health develops and the way of delivery and transformation and whatever else we face move forward, in 10 years' time, we might not be delivering exactly the services listed in this business case, but there might be chances for it. One of the other advantages of moving to this site is it allows for flexibility for growth in the future if that's ever needed. Whereas, you know, from the existing Strabane Health Centre and even at Mornside with the landlord, space is constrained. So expansion was never an option currently. The rest of the questions were in relation to
GP contracts.
In relation to GP contracts, there's fragility in GP contracts everywhere at the minute, and you'll know best from your local area. We have to work in the long-term plan, because these are always long-term projects. The population still needs to be treated by a GP. Who that GP is, or what form that contract takes, or who it's with, those are immediate pressures that we all are facing, and we can see from across the whole of Northern Ireland those pressures but we have to work on the basis that GP services need provided in that area, and hopefully by that stage we will have more stability in our GP services in the future.
Secure and approval.
Thank you very much. So I don't see any more speakers on this. So just to say thanks very much again for coming along and presenting to us today. So I'll just give it a couple of minutes now to get the next panel up.
Deputy Mayor, just from an officer perspective, just to also thank the Western Health and Social Care team. I mean, we've talked about this in the early part of the presentation, but it's been a really long journey to get to this point. And it's true of each of the partners that they flex considerably around original plans, moving to a place where it looked at one point it was going to be quite difficult to deliver on all of the objectives to now this point. So each of the partners have been incredibly flexible in working with us with regard to that. And it's most certainly the case, and I think you would agree, that without us working together and without the catalyst of study deal, these projects would not be happening within these timeframes. So while there is a big risk in terms of interdependency, the risk of not proceeding with projects that are interlinked is much greater in terms of overall delivery.
Okay, so move on now to our next speakers. This is from the Northwest Regional College. So I'd like to welcome Patrick McEwen, Gary Bradley, and Gillian Moss, and I'll pass it over to yourselves now, sure, to you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, as Deputy Mayor just said, I'd like to introduce my colleagues. On my right is Gillian Moss, Head of Client Services. To my left is Gary Bradley, Estates Manager, and I'm Patrick McEwen, the Finance Director. I also have responsibility for estates at a direct level. Just to remind members, the Northwest Regional College geographical spread is from the far side of Limavady to Strabane. Two colleges came together in a merger in 2007, the former Limavady College and the former Northwest Institute of Further Higher Education, which of course was Derry Tech, to use its old words, and the former Strabane College. Next slide, please. There is significant overlap, folks, here between what was said certainly at the council presentation. So where that is the case, I'll maybe race through some of these slides just in the interest of time. But there's the contents that we want to run down through very quickly this afternoon, dealing with strategic context, which takes in the skills strategy and 10X, leading through to the curriculum plan. I will touch upon the 5-case model and try and make that specific to the educational element of this project. We'll deal with the preferred option and give you some comfort that we think this stacks up from a revenue perspective. So at that juncture, I'll pass across to Gillian.
Hey, thank you very much, Patrick. I'm going to take you through the curriculum plan from a strategic context. So apologies from our Director of Curriculum. She's unable to be here today, so I'm going to pick up this aspect of the OBC. In terms of strategic context, then the college obviously is working in line with the Programme for Government and the Skills Economy 10X strategy. For us, we've got a dual mandate in terms of a skills pipeline and supporting lifelong learning. The OBC is around making sure we invest in skills and training, particularly in Strabane, making sure we develop an economy ready for curriculum ready for the economy in the area, looking at higher level apprenticeships, looking at traineeships, and as I said, supporting lifelong learning. We're looking at a curriculum in terms of the detail of that curriculum. It's in the OBC, but it's green technologies, science, digital skills, STEM, and working with some of the local partners on sport and performing arts also. Continue to work in partnership with our local businesses in supporting innovation vouchers, the food industries, CAS, and some of the larger organisations within the town centre as well. We will continue to work on our community partnerships, and that's really been built into our OBC, and working with the likes of the Strabane Community Unemployment Group with the digital hubs. Slide, please. Back.
Go back.
Need to go back too, I think.
Just go back a couple of slides, please. Back another one.
That's it.
Thank you.
So when we were developing our curriculum plan, we had to look at the three key focuses or three key pillars of the 10X strategy. So innovation, inclusivity and sustainability. In terms of our curriculum, we were looking at the skills barometer, looking at developing professional skills, allied health within the actual town centre and linking in with the other partners in the project. This will encourage innovation and economic growth for the town centre, and we're also looking at fostering further collaboration through the Northwest Tech Group. So that's where we come together with the ETB, Ulster University and ATU as well to develop the likes of electrical vehicle courses in Strabane. Inclusivity is key for us, equality of opportunity for all within the district, and we're looking at developing widening access scholarships within the curriculum, our step-up curriculum, which is aimed at economic and activity, and supporting the removal of deprivation through education and therefore improving the quality of life for people within the district. Sustainability is going to be a key aspect for the full project in terms of our build, our curriculum and also our culture. So the build in terms of materials that we use, the curriculum in terms of what we're going to offer in terms of green tech and sustainability training, and in terms of culture, making sure we have a recycling, energy efficient culture within the actual build. We'll continue to engage with our community and ensure utilisation in the evenings to maximise utilisation of the town centre. Next slide, please. The current context for the build that we're currently in, it does provide us with some operational challenges. So the building was built in 1937. Obviously, we've had to build modular huts out the back, and therefore it's not really fit for practice for a current learning environment for our students. We're also got 2 post-primary new schools in the area, and therefore there's a big impact for our students coming to the current campus. It does as well provide us with technological challenges around Wi-Fi and ensuring that we provide a modern and up-to-date learning environment for the students. This, alongside the lack of a 14 to 19 policy, does have an impact on our current campus. In terms of Strabane, as we're aware and has been noted already, we do have high levels of deprivation. Northwest in particular, in our Strabane campus, we have the highest number of learners from quintile 1 and 2, and therefore have multiple deprivation measures. We have actually 63% versus a sector average of 45%, so you can see the impact. The labour market data as well, the highest in activity rates in Northern Ireland, and in particular low-level skills or low levels at level 4 and above. In Strabane, 25% versus a sector average of 35%. And our curriculum plan will therefore look at levels 4 and above in that offer. The demographics, there's a declining 16 to 24-year-old population, whilst we see an increase in our 65 plus. Therefore, the curriculum plan is supporting lifelong learning and working with our local community groups to provide lifelong learning agenda and curriculum. The claimant counts historically maintain the highest claimant counts levels in Northern Ireland for both males and females, 4.8 versus a 2.5 Northern Ireland average. So quite significant challenges. Next slide, please. In terms of the underlying principles of the current curriculum plan, it's reflective of the DFE skills agenda and works with the skills barometer. A lot of our focus has been on the FE sector curriculum review and the priorities, particularly at level 3 curriculum and above. We have developed an innovative and responsive curriculum. More recently, we're working with a Solace project, and we hope to provide in April 24 on the campus electrical apprenticeships with Solace as part of that curriculum plan progression. The plan has also been looking at avoidance of duplication and minimisation of displacement. We do have 20% of our learners from ROI, and therefore we imagine that will continue and maybe grow. And we do have a new product, which is the traineeships, which is an FE product only, and they will be part of our curriculum plan going forward. They're aimed at level 2 learners, particularly within development of work placement and transversal skills as part of their curriculum. We will continue to, and the curriculum plan does promote effective partnerships and collaborative links with all stakeholders within the town. And we've considered the wider community landscape, particularly the rural community within Strabane. And as part of that, our curriculum does further develop the technology enhanced learning and remote learning through blended and online offer as part of our part-time and evening. We will continue to promote and increase business engagement, particularly within the food industry and hospitality, and we're in conversation with CAFRE around all age apprenticeships in that space. Some of the unique provisions for Strabane that we are currently offering include electrical, renewables, green technologies, plumbing and dental, and they will continue to expand as part of the new build. Next slide, please. In terms of the strategic context, the college really has 2 masters in this space. So ETI from a quality aspect and DFE from a skills and strategy. And the business plan must meet both of those specific areas. The curriculum plan was developed not so much about what we were going to offer, but also looking at what we weren't going to offer to reduce displacement. And we focused a lot on FE and HE links, particularly development of our OU partnership and offering a wider higher education offer in Strabane in part-time and evening curriculum. We're continuing to work with Peace Plus and put in bids to provide extensive opportunities, as I say, with the Northwest Tech Group in particular. And then part of that curriculum will also look at how we respond to the local needs of employers, healthcare practice, extensive short courses in support and blended learning, dementia training, care assistant, manual handling, and CPD training for local community and businesses, alongside the digital literacy and numeracy skills development. Next slide. That's it, yeah. The curriculum plan operation is from part of the OBCs from 2023 to 2028. The OBC has details of the targets and numbers against an evolving curriculum. We do have to work to a schedule of accommodation, and I'm sure Patrick might pick up on that a bit further. But we have received positive feedback from ETI in terms of aspirations and achievable targets and the community links that we built into our current plan. We are looking at confirming specialist accommodation on the site, particularly science labs, linking with CAFRE, food hygiene, and working with the likes of the theatre to do performing arts, the leisure centre for sports and particular workshops, which some of that work has already started. I'm going to pass over to Patrick now for the next section.
Thanks, Gillian. And as I said at the outset, there's a bit of a crossover here from what Angela said at the earlier start of the meeting. We have, just to give you comfort, we have prepared a business case along the 5-case model that has been presented and handed in to Eamon and his team. It's also been submitted to DFE at the end of November. Next slide, please. In terms of the strategic case, the Inclusive Future Fund from which the NWRC project is aiming to secure funding is aimed at bringing greater prosperity and social benefits to the whole of the Derry and Strabane area, and we wish to play a part in that. Delivered together, it is anticipated that the City Deal and the Inclusive Future Fund will generate a transformative integrated economic and social regeneration programme for the North West. Critically, skills and employability pathways and sustainability and inclusivity are crucial elements cross-cutting the City Deal and Inclusive Future Fund investment plan. It's interesting to note that the strategic outline case for the Strabane Town Centre regeneration advised that, and specific to us, the communities in Strabane area do not currently enjoy equality in terms of access to key educational services. Next slide, please. The current position, and again, this is crossing over what Gillian said previously, there's high levels of deprivation and claimant counts and lower levels of educational attainment. We are currently sitting at a B2 listed building that goes back to the 1930s. Okay. We have one building that's older than that. That's the Lawrence building on Strabane Road, but it's in better shape. The estate strategy 21 to 31 identifies that there's a marked contrast in the quality of teaching accommodation between much of Northwest Regional Campus's other accommodation and that of the Strabane campus, and concludes that the Strabane campus requires a significant refurbishment or indeed replacement. The Strabane campus compares unfavourably with the best in class and FE facilities in Northern Ireland. In fact, it looks unfavourably against those. It's not even best in class, even average buildings. Two separate condition surveys, one in 2014 and 2022. Both of those surveys concluded that the building and its environs require considerable investment. Next slide, please. Again, just to race through the high levels here, the appearance is not good. I appreciate it's a listed building, but it's not good for modern teaching. It offers poor functionality in terms of academic need. The large space requirements are currently in porta cabins, prefab buildings. The utilisation is poor. Technology access is poor. Wi-Fi coming through the thick walls. It seems a simple problem, but it's not. It currently needs significant expenditure to stand still. Gary and his team are frightened to scrape the walls in case we find out something we don't want to find out. It does not adhere to current best-in-class sustainability building standards. It's a major issue for us. Nor does it allow for access for those students with special needs. It's poor in that regard. Next slide, please. We believe that this project meets the key drivers for public sector intervention and spend. It needs replacement. There's an efficiency issue. It is anticipated that the investment in Strabane campus will improve the delivery of public services in terms of outputs at two levels. The broad city deal project, and we do believe that some of the parts is much stronger, and at college level. A new campus will improve the quality of further education provision and the delivery of learning services. That's effectiveness. The economy, the PROS project will reduce the college's operating costs. Now we hope direct delivery costs, which is teaching, increases as students increase, but certainly estates costs and energy costs will reduce. Compliance, the proposed project is anticipated to support NWRC's aim to meet statutory and regulatory and organisational requirements and accepted as best practice. Next slide, please. The benefits have already been touched upon by council colleagues, and the specific benefits for us have already touched upon in the last slide. Next slide, please. In terms of the economic case, we have looked at the options. You heard the high-level options across the City Deal project in totality. The most recent condition survey looked at 5 different options on the current site, from do nothing, from some minor refurbishment right through to demolition and rebuilding on the existing site. I should say at this point, members, that the reason why I've included the VAT plus figure is that the college cannot recover VAT, albeit a very, very, very small amount, less than half of 1%. So the VAT is a cost to us. That's why we've shown it in the presentation, inclusive of VAT. Over and above that, we looked at 2 options. Next slide, please. Specific to the Canal Basin. One was a 2-storey building with sole access to the building from the Strabane Canal Basin site. And the other, which is our preferred option, a 2-storey building access both from the Canal Basin site and the Derry Road. And that's very important to us from a student access perspective. Option B there is coming to 12.5 million net and just over £15 million gross. Next slide, please. You have seen this already from colleagues. The kind of upside down L-shaped yellow is the preferred option for us. That would have access from the Derry Road and from the Canal Basin. That would be our preferred option, and it brings great benefits to us. In terms of the economic case, we have taken the long list of about 7 options and brought forward 3 of those options for detailed analysis within the business case. 2 of those are on the existing site, and number 3 is on the current site, and that's the one that you've just seen. Option 1 is presented for comparative purposes, but in essence, we believe that represents a decline or a further decline in FE in the Strabane area. if we simply do a very minor refurb of the existing site. Option 2 does go some way to meeting our issues, but not fully. And option 3, the one that I've just referred, which is double access on the Canal Basin site, is our preferred option at a cost of just over 15. In terms of the next slide, please. The commercial case, as you've heard from our health colleagues, that is their preferred option. If we manage to progress that, we will have a D1 process in terms of disposal of public property. We have gone through this on a number of occasions, so we don't see that being an issue, and working with our colleagues in DFE. The procurement strategy, again, as referenced by our colleagues previously, that will go through construction procurement in terms of procuring our integrated consultant team, ICT, and our integrated supply team, IST. Initial discussions have taken place with Gary and his team, with CPD colleagues. And it's our understanding that the key aspects of the procurement process will involve the following. It will be an NEC contract. IST procurement will probably be design and build, and a major emphasis will be on sustainability on both design and construction. Next slide. In terms of the financial case, I've already highlighted the capital cost. We believe that has been funded both from City Deal and IFF. The operating costs are on the next slide, please. That is a spreadsheet we've pulled together. You're seeing the high-level spreadsheet, members, but there's a lot of detail has gone into the background of that in terms of the different funding streams for the different students that will be on our different pathways, educational pathways. So there's quite a bit of detail in that. You'll see at the bottom end of that spreadsheet, our energy costs and our estates costs do drop dramatically post the building construction of this new build. Next slide. In terms of the management case, before I move to Gary, just to take you through the programme very quickly, we already have a project board within the college. It's been operational for over 2 years. It was chaired by myself up until February 23, but I'm leading the college bid into the Causeway Growth Deal project. So the board is currently led by our Chief Executive, Leo Murphy. My colleagues left and right sit on that, as does Dr. Catherine O'Mullen. As that project develops, we would expect that DFE will have representation on that as well. Okay. At this juncture, I'll just pass to Gary to talk briefly about the programme.
Thank you, Patrick. So, as Patrick's already said, our OBC has been completed. We've submitted to Council and we've also submitted to DFE, allowing for a reasonable time frame for review, comment and hopefully approval. We've then shown really that our procurement process of our ICT, which is basically our design team, will be commencing at the end of Q2, start of Q3, 2024. And as you can see, in the years ahead leading up to the completion at the end of 2028, there'll be all the other subsequent actions in terms of completing design, getting plan submitting, getting the contractor on board, and so on and so forth. The completion date of the end of 2028 is crucial for us. Obviously, it reflects Q4, but we'll be doing everything to try and align it with Q3, 2028. So to get a degree of sort of consistency with the start of the academic term. Also, that benefits not only ourselves, but also the health project as well, because obviously their start date is key to us being complete in our new site, and also being in a position to vacate the existing site. So obviously, as we go into 2027, 28, I'll be liaising closely with the Western Trust in terms of the disposal process, the handover process, and ultimately us being in a position to vacate the site at the earliest opportunity for them to commence.
Thanks, Gary. Deputy Mayor, that concludes our presentation.
Once again, thanks very much, and especially for your colourful description of the current state of the college building. Just hope it doesn't put off our friends in the Western Trust not to go into the building, but thanks very much. I'll open up the floor again. Councillor Boggs.
Deputy Mayor, and like yourself, while it isn't a very suitable building for a college, I know that after the department spends 18 million on it, it's going to be a fantastic health hub. for them to use. I suppose no real questions, just a couple of comments in relation to the need, I suppose, for modernisation of facilities and Strabane. I wholeheartedly agree with what you have all said in relation to the state of the building at the minute. It isn't fit for purpose for modern day learning. There is nothing attractive about it for people that may be looking elsewhere for them to decide to come to Strabane, other than the fantastic teaching and learning that takes place. And also, you know, Sinn Féin as a party recognise the importance of creating facilities that service the whole of the North West. This isn't just for Strabane town residents or citizens and potential students. It's even further out than Alderman Hussey's Castledearg. We have a real opportunity if we create something modern and sleek and up to standard to, I suppose, really interest particularly as well students from the 26 counties, namely Donegal and the surrounding areas. So I think that's important when looking at what skill base we need to create within this area. We're looking further than Strabane and Derry, and I think a new modern facility and one that is built for the teaching and learning of future jobs. I, up until recently, was a teacher, and what I used to say to students is the jobs that you will be doing in 15 years' time haven't even been thought about yet. They haven't even been created. And at the minute, I would say we are finding it harder and harder in the current campus to teach for the jobs that are coming down the line very soon. Never mind the jobs that haven't even been created yet. So I want to commend you for your vision and like others, the other presenters, just thank you very much for being a part of this entire project. And we look forward to working with you going into the future. I'm finding it harder and harder, Chair, not to become more excited about one part over another part, but obviously with my interest in education, this is very interesting. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Councillor Boggs, Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm sorry to say that when I was first a student in this building, it was a much fresher building many years ago. But 40 odd years ago. But I'm pleased for the presentation. I think that, and again, looking at the future, I think like the Northwest does a great job in engaging with the community in Strabane. And I think that with the amalgamation and the partnership with this, I think that the future of Strabane and the education process will look well in the future. And I'm glad to see that you are part of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Alderman Hussey.
Years that Councillor Gallagher was talking about his years as a student there. Engagement would have been his head of business in Castledearg at the time. so sorry, the years are there, Paul. And I really do welcome the proposal that's coming forward. It's long overdue. There's always been a feeling that the Strabane campus was the poor relative, and that hopefully is now being addressed. You mentioned, by the way, Paul's already hinted at it there. I welcome what's been said there, that there will be that availability of outreach to the rural community. And of course, being a Derry councillor, it's extremely important to me that would happen. Is it envisaged when, and I use that term, not if, but when you're at Canal Basin, that there will be an increase in the number of courses that become available? I'm particularly interested in that because, as Chief Executive and other officers know, as a council we operate within the city region, the Northwest City region, and Northwest College has links with Letterkenny, with ATU, etc., and courses that could be coming there, particularly with regard to new technologies. One that was highlighted at one of the last meetings we had was with regard to retrofitting of buildings and all of the new technology that's going to be required for that. For that new technology, you need people with the skills to do that. So, I would hope that that's the sort of thing that's going to come in and be available in this part of the council area, and not just held on Strand Road or wherever. You've already mentioned the building efficiency, which I had indicated with regard to the health hub, that all of that efficiency can come about. Have you any indication of a projected student number increase And indeed, that obviously involves a staff increase with the courses and with the increased numbers. And one final one, why access from the Derry Road? You know, I had thought the whole idea was you've got this contained hub, health, education. The health's moving out to where you were, but the other two, the leisure, and that would be in the Canal Basin, with that being the sort of hub, creating that critical mass. Whereas, does the fact that you are looking for the entrance from the Derry Road, which you currently have on the current side, does that take away from the overall concept of that critical mass that was being envisaged? Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. I'll pass over yourselves.
I'll pick up on the curriculum. So in terms of our curriculum, you're right, it is evolving, and we are we have, I don't know what the word is in terms of your schedule of accommodation, but we are limited in terms to how far we can actually progress in terms of our numbers for full-time learners. We do have a footprint that we have to operate within, but in terms of the evolving curriculum, we have looked at that with that change over the next 5 years, some curriculum will drop off and some curriculum will come on board. So there's been a lot around the likes of cybersecurity, passive house, looking at making sure our workshops can evolve in the new build as well to evolve with the changes that's going to be, particularly in the building trade going forward. And I think our links with Solace and the ETB in Donegal have already started some of that work, with hopefully the work we're going to have on site from April around electrical apprenticeships. But the build will really evolve, as will the curriculum. So that answers that. I'll let Patrick deal with the next point.
Yeah, in terms of student numbers, yes, we need to see an increase there, and that is a challenge. It's a challenge to FE right across the sector at the moment. But we genuinely believe we can make this work. In terms of actual numbers at the moment, for the year just finished 22-23 with about 130 full-time students and close to 1,000 part-time, about 900. That equates into what we call full-time equivalent FTE students. And that buys us space, to use a term within the sector. You justify buying that space or getting funding for that space on your space FTEs. So that would be sitting at probably less than 200 at the moment, probably about 180 FTEs when you convert part-timers into full-time equivalent. We would need to see that climbing to about 260, 265. And the schedule of accommodation that Gillian refers to, it's a very, very old document that the department use. So basically, if you've got 12 joiners, that will buy you a joinery workshop at 60 square metres, et cetera, et cetera. You might need a bit more business studies students to buy the same space because you don't have machines and so on. So we have projected in the business case and in the curriculum plan, in terms of our mix between full-time and part-time, about 265 full-time. I should say also, without getting too technical about it, the students that we have between 9 and 5 in the building buys the space. Those students coming into the building in the evening, you don't build a new space for them. They use the space that's vacated from the day students. So it does get quite complicated. It is quite a dated document, but we believe we're operating very efficiently in the projections that we are putting forward. In terms of access, I suppose it's a case of a cake and eat it, to be honest. But on seriously, it's still very much a Canal Basin site. We see it from our Limavady campus. We see it from our Strand Road campus. It's important to have that main thoroughfare that's coming into the town. And I don't know Strabane, I'm a Limavady person, as well as maybe Gillian and some colleagues here, but we still think that's important, and we've given that quite a bit of thought, just on an access and a visual element.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thanks very much for your presentation. I suppose my key question was around student numbers, but Patrick, you've just answered it in great detail there. I suppose really just to acknowledge the work that has gone on this far. We have often talked in this chamber about the benefits of an all singing, all dancing university will have for Derry and what that can do in terms of attracting people into the city. And I believe the same argument flips the other way when we're talking about the Northwest Regional College and Strabane. So for us, it's all positive. The only, I suppose, slightly negative thing is the timeline in all of this. But as the Deputy Mayor said earlier on, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we accept that. But look, it's just to acknowledge, I suppose, the work that you have put on and the commitment you have put on. They work along with Council to try and get this delivered. Thank you.
Thank you. You, Councillor Tierney, Councillor Hart online.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Yes, you described the building as quite old. My grandmother attended the old tech. I'm in my 50s, so that's quite a time ago. I attended also when I was in Strabane Training Centre, which was instrumental in acquiring many of the skills I applied in my time in the construction industry. So I think that's very important that those courses are provided, because like all children, you know, they're not always they might not go down the academic path. So it's important that those kind of courses are provided, apprenticeships. I was also a part-time lecturer with the Northwest Regional College in Strabane for over 10 years, so I understand the limitations of the building and the learning experience from that. I think you mentioned a collaborative approach with Open University, and that's an institution I attended also, both at the foundation level and postgraduate level, so that's a very welcome development. If you look at Oma and Derry, they both have modern buildings in the FE, and like any young person, this is something that they take into consideration when they're choosing their place of learning. So it's all very positive and exciting going forward, and also the design aspect, which you mentioned, with access from both the Derry Road and the Canal Basin. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hart. I think that draws us to a close. I don't see any other speakers for this. So I just like to say thanks very much for coming along today and for giving your presentation. Thank you. And again, we'll just give it just a small couple of minutes, just then we get to our final presentation ready. We'll move on now to your final presentations. We'd like to welcome Harry Gallagher and Dermot McReynolds, both from DFI, who will now give us their presentation on the pedestrian active travel footbridge.
Thank you, Chair. I say I'm Harry Gallagher. I'm from the network development team in the DFI roads here, and I'm joined by my colleague Dermot McReynolds from the local team here in the Derry and Strabane council area. I've got about 14 slides, so I'm not going to be taking as long. We've already been through a lot of the stuff on the outline business case. So there's a few slides I'll take a few minutes with, just talking through, and then I'll briefly go through the slides which deal with the business case itself. But I think most of those issues have been discussed already this afternoon. Just starting with the first one, does no harm just to look at the picture of Strabane and the river. The river's such an asset to the Strabane. Sorry, you've moved on to the second slide too quickly. So I mean, just go back to the first one. I was just going to describe the town with the first one. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I was going to be quick, but I didn't think I was going to be that quick. But just the river is such an asset to the town, but it also forms a bit of severance in the town between the two parts of the town. And the facilities in the town are separated, and that really has been always one of the challenges for the town. And with the Sperrins rising up in the east, the development is very constrained in that section as well. So now I'll catch up with my slides now, but I'll not spend too long on this because you've already been through the outline business cases which have already been discussed. And this whole aspect of the strategic, economic, financial, commercial and management cases which we must make for it. And that's all set out in the Treasury guidance for these things. And there's been a long-standing desire for a town centre footbridge in Strabane. So really, it's this city deal which gives us the opportunity to bring this scheme forward. So next slide now. And I say I'll just take a wee minute or two just to talk about Strabane because it is useful. We've been focusing very much on the canal basin and its regeneration, but of course the canal basin doesn't make sense without the context of the town itself. And Strabane is very much, as a separated, joined by the river, which provides that distinction between the east and west of the town. And if you do look at any of the old plans of the town, really up until the 1950s, the town was very much focused on that whole east side of the river around the traditional town centre. And it was a housing development which happened in the town in the 1950s. And the hills to the east have prevented further development very much on that side. But that does mean you get that distinction between the town, between the residential areas in the west and the town centre facilities in the east. And that really has continued as the years have gone by with the retail park developments down at that old Asda, or Lidl as there now is as well. And then on the west side of the river, the bus station, which just feels that wee bit separate from the town centre itself. And I have been planning possible park and ride extensions around the bus station. And again, when you're talking about Strabane, you have to think of the proximity of Lifford. The two towns, Strabane and Lifford, very much thought of very much in the same context. And with future development with the new A5, the Western Transport Corridor happening, very much down there in that vicinity at Asda and Lidl. So it's really with this all in mind, and those who are familiar with the town will know about the constraints of the existing old bridge in town, that the footbridge really has been proposed. So on to the next slide. And just talking about the footbridge in a very general sense, I just want to give you an idea. This is very much of a schematic nature, but the new footbridge is likely to be a completely clear span right across the river with no feet in the river as well. And it's intended to be based around the sort of from the canal basin, sorry, not the canal basin, from the car park at Christie's, there, Lower Main Street car park, and then stretching over to there's a pumping station down near the back of the bus station. So that's the intention as to where the footbridge location will be, and its format is very likely to be of a clear span to avoid having to put any foot in the river. With the Mourne being part of the foil and its tributaries, it's all very protected. So I think really for construction of a bridge, it's probably best to avoid anything in the bridge itself. Next slide, please. When I'm talking about the scheme, I'll talk about new minimum, new maximum options. And really, this refers to the extent of the footway linkages which the footbridge has. And sorry, I should also say when I refer to footbridge, it's intended to be a footbridge and a cycle bridge, but I'll say footbridge just for ease of not having to repeat that mouthful so many times. So very definitely the footbridge will have connections into the network in Strabane. And with the do maximum option, the intention is to extend that further along the river wall to the A5 down at the A5 road bridge. Next slide, please. Both options also include work on the town side of the river. As I was saying, the footbridge will land in that car park at Lower Main Street, and that will affect the road which is used to service the businesses which front onto Main Street, the likes of SuperValue, things like that. So the intention is to provide a link road which will actually come out onto Bridge Street at the end of the bridge there in Strabane. So the road will still be open along the flood wall there, but it will also have, at the minute, the HGVs drive in to the road and then reverse out back into the Lower Main Street car park. But because the footbridge will there, it'll not be easy for anybody to reverse out from there. So the intention is with both options to create a linkage which will tie that road at the back of Main Street onto Bridge Street itself. And that should mitigate against any severance resulting from the footbridge landing in the car park. Next slide, please. And as I'll not go through the various, we've already talked about these 5 business cases quite a long way this afternoon, but very briefly, the strategic case looks at the context, the strategic context for government policies and strategies. And just that photograph of the existing bridge in Strabane emphasises just how narrow the footway is. And I managed to get a picture of that with no vehicles on it, but most people who are familiar with the town will know just how busy that road can be and how narrow that footway can be. I think it's about 1.3 metres at its narrowest. And the existing transport deficiencies have been examined in the context of the population densities, those walking, isochrones, the modes of transport and the travels to work. And on to the next slide, please. So the Moran Bridge provides, that's the one down on the A5 bridge, enough space for surface for shared use. However, it's a longer route to the town centre, and indeed it's not that popular for people walking into the town. The Strabane Bridge itself, the old bridge, has footpaths 1.35 metres and no cycle provision. And the width of the footpath makes their use by pedestrians and cyclists uncomfortable and place both groups within close proximity to large vehicles when they're crossing the bridge. So there's significant plans for the provision of improved walking and cycling in and around Strabane. However, what these plans generally lack is a crossing of the Mourne and the connection between the east and west of Strabane. And it's estimated that the new footbridge will result in a shift of around 5% of the workforce population. We could shift from the private car to walking and cycling with resultant social and economic benefits. And the conclusion of the strategic case is that the proposed bridge provides a good fit with policy and would contribute to delivering the outcomes and objectives set out in key policy documents. Next slide, please. In considering the footbridge location, a lot of work had been done over the years. As I say, so many of these projects have quite a long gestation period, and work even done with the former Strabane District Council. And we had looked at various options for the footbridge, those various different coloured lines you can see along there. And a full options assessment report was carried out, and the blue option is the one that has been chosen as the preferred option. This provides the best place for safe access to the town centre for active travel and will increase the uptake of active travel and will positively impact the canal basin and its regeneration, reduce carbon emissions and improve access to public transport, and is the best engineering location with the lowest cost and risk. So next slide, please. And this the economic assessment, and we've had plenty of tables with lots of small print, so I'll not go into that too much. But suffice to say that a benefit cost ratio has been carried out of the various options, and the do maximum option has the one with the highest benefit cost ratio. It's the preferred option and will generate the highest usage with the greatest benefit to society. Next slide, please. Sorry, there's two options. Sorry, there's two. Can we just go back to that slide? And maybe I was a bit too brief in going through these things. Sorry, can I go back one? Yeah. There's two assessments carried out for each of the two options, and that's what it is. There's one with a 30-year assessment and one with a 50-year assessment. Oh, sorry, which one of these? There's no blue there. I'm reminded, if anybody remembers the black and white TV, they used to say, if you're looking for the pink ball, it's the one behind the blue if you're watching in black and white. But if you it's the sort of middle one there out of those. Between the red and purple, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Nope. That's it. That's it. Right. No. Take just a minute. Sorry, I'm conscious that the afternoon was wearing on. I didn't mean to rush things so much. If I could just, the colours obviously have come out different as they do. So I'm just take a minute just to make sure that we are looking at the right footbridge location. If you can think of the car park, the Lower Main Street car park is sort of where Christie's Bar is in Main Street. Yeah, that's the one. That's where it lands on one side, and then it crosses over, and there's a pumping station on the west side of the river. There's a water service pumping station, and that's where it lands on that side of the river. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Next slide, please. And as I was just talking about the benefit cost ratio, and then to get to the actual cost of it. And there's been conversations this afternoon on how important it is to get the economic assessments and to consider all those factors, all those unknowns, and to make those estimates up. And so we've included the material costs from recent projects, taking account of inflation and allowed for risk. And the two costs we're working with are a due minimum cost of around 8.7 million and a due maximum option of 10.4 million. So that's the two costs of the two options that I have been discussing so far. And next slide, please. And the commercial case really just sets out how the scheme can be procured. And the main objective of any procurement strategy are to ensure the procurement of the pedestrian cycle bridge satisfy the procurement regulations and offer the best value for money to the procurement routes and benefit the people of Strabane and surrounding areas, and procure a contractor to enable the design and construction phase of all the works to align with the programme. Given the limited number of contractors who can deliver a project like this, it's concluded that a design and build open procedure is likely to be the recommended approach for a procurement of a project like this. Okay, next slide, please. And the management case sets out how the scheme's progress will be managed in a diligent and pragmatic manner to deliver the project on time, to budget, and in improved state. So this project is not dependent on any of the other projects, but has been considered as part of the Canal Basin Master Plan, while not being dependent on the Canal Basin scheme. The proposed bridge does provide a fundamental element of the Canal Basin Master Plan and its provision will help to maximise the benefit of the whole Canal Basin regeneration. Subject to the achievement of the City Deal financial deal in spring 2024, it's anticipated that a consultant can be appointed in 2024, allowing the planning process to proceed during 24 and 25, followed by contract document preparation in 26-27, with construction starting in mid-2027 and completion in early 29. And below there is the table, which really just provides that summary of those different key dates in the management of the project. Next slide, please. And as I say, this really just gets to the conclusion of it. As has been discussed this afternoon, the underinvestment in Strabane has resulted in a number of issues economically, socially, in relation to the transport network. And proposed investment in the town, such as the canal basin regeneration, seeks to address these issues. However, the lack of accessibility, especially between the west and east of Strabane, separated by the Moyne River, will hamper these schemes moving forward. This proposed scheme will significantly improve connectivity between the west and east of Strabane, providing significant benefits to the local and wider communities, improving health, access to jobs and services, and helping to encourage investment in the region as a whole. The purpose of the outline business case is to establish the case for investment in the proposed active travel bridge and the associated facilities based on Treasury's guidance, this 5-case business model. And the outline business case demonstrates that the bridge will solve these problems locally and regionally, helping deliver wider government objectives, represents value for money, is commercially viable, is financially affordable, and is deliverable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, I'll open it up to the floor. Councillor Boggs.
Hopefully for the last time, Gurmagat, Deputy Mayor, and thank you as well to the presenters. Very, very informative. I suppose what I like about some projects is that whenever they come in, they solve more than one problem. And I think you touched upon the narrow footpaths that is on the bridge at Bridge Street, which is a significant problem. If you're driving along there and you see more than 2 people coming at one time, you kind of think, is somebody going to come straight out in front of me here? So I think if you were to reduce the footfall off that bridge and putting it onto a pedestrian bridge, that solves another problem. Officers will know that we have discussed the development of active travel and greenways, hopefully in the near future throughout Strabane. And one of the asks from one of the groups that is coming from us is to link up the greenways that are already there and around Asda roundabout and the new Lidl and that kind of area, and how we extend that then on the other side of the river, heading up and towards Sion. And their plans, they have already looked at this being a key part of allowing them to do that by providing a crossover from one side of the town to the other. So that's very welcome. I suppose just so that I'm get about clear, that link road that you talk about, is that if I was coming over Bridge Street to go into the town, that it would take me down where you can't actually really drive at the minute? As you say, you go up one way and then down the other. Is that right behind Super Value and that into Lower Main Street Car Park? Is that, am I right in that? And that's all the questions from me. Thank you very much again.
Chair.
Yes, that is indeed it. Although the point you make at the right outset, one of the things I'm always keen to say about the footbridge is not an end in itself. It's only the linkages that it provides that are the important thing. And this is one of the aspects of it. With the footbridge landing in that car park at Lower Main Street, it'll mean it's quite difficult or more difficult to access that road at the back of Main Street. Can't think of what its name is, but it's just between the flood wall and the back properties. So actually what we'll have to do is to bring out a new access road onto Bridge Street. There's just some new apartments have got built there just in the last couple of years. So there'll be a new road. It's likely to be a one-way road. I can't see being able to come across the bridge and turn left into that. I just don't think that manoeuvre will be possible. But I do think you should be able to come out there and join the traffic there. I would hope it would never be a busy road for vehicles. I would just hope it would get a wee bit of activity around it, you know, might make it a slightly less sort of hidden area.
Thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair and Deputy Mayor. Thanks again for the presentation. I've said before I do welcome this. I believe it should have been the first footbridge that was placed in Strabane. And I mean, I believe that since my own time on Strabane District Council, indeed up in the Hill as well, and have engaged with Danny Kennedy and indeed Tim Wells on that whole issue of that particular bridge. Promises were made, nothing's ever materialised until now, and that makes it all the more welcome. I think taking up on Councillor Boggs' scenario or comments there, the issue of the greenways and linkage in to the end of the bridge, particularly on that bus station side, are extremely important because not forgetting, you know, the local residents, you also have the bus station. So folk coming in there, you want to ensure that they're able to, from the station, access the town centre easily, which a bridge will permit. And it is the creation of a natural walkway that is bringing people to the existing town centre, not the developing town centre, if we can describe it that way. But I suppose that's one for our own officers. Are we ensuring that our greenway provision or walkways or whatever are going to be in tune with whatever the department is putting in on the footbridge there? So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And yes, I do remember the work we did with Strabane District Council. None of it is wasted. I mean, one of the things is it's never wasted. And that one of the reasons I've been able to provide an outline business case is building on the work that we did in the past. So that's been great. The point about the bus station is so critical to it. And that has actually been quite a large part of the economic appraisal is the savings in time there will be for passengers to get from the town centre to the bus station rather than having to walk around either by the old bridge in one way or the A5. So that is a critical aspect of it. And as part of that, as you rightly say, is the footway and cycle connections to the wider network. And it's great that we have such a good relationship with Derry and Strabane Council, you know, with linking into the greenways and working with the team there. So we are very proactive, and they are indeed very proactive as well.
Thanks very much. I don't think there's any more speakers on this, but just to say that this bridge definitely will be a fantastic asset to that end of the town, especially from the bus station. And I know the addition of that, maybe a park and ride and stuff. I'm good on it. And Strabane Greenways that come in and presented to us in the committee recently, that would link in very well with that as well. Straight up on the side mills and right from there also. So but definitely will be a fantastic asset, and we'll look forward to that being built. So just to say thanks very much again for coming along and giving your presentation. So thank you. And I'll pass over to John now.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And just on behalf of the officer team as well, with regard to DFI, our thanks to Harry and his colleagues for the close working, but also members in terms of trying to lever in the additional funding to the project, which is so important for the project, not just for the bridge, but the connectivity that Harry mentioned, and the wider environmental improvements and around the footbridge and the linkages up along the river and up in towards the Canal Basin side. So it's very much appreciated. Deputy Mayor, look, I know it's been a very long afternoon for everyone, but hopefully it's been a really comprehensive overview of the totality of the projects that make up the suite of projects for the Strabane City deal. The recommendation in front of members today is the endorsement of the OBCs and the direction of travel with regard to the projects. There is the sort of slight clunkiness in and around having that recommendation in open business, but also then having to briefly go into closed business to ask for the same recommendation for the endorsement of the totality of the OBCs. So, Deputy Mayor, I'll maybe pass back to you for consideration of members' views on the recommendation.
Yep. Councillor Box.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, John. I'm happy to endorse it as a formal proposal. Could I also ask at this stage, just as well, we had requested for some of the presentations at the start. Could we request that all those presentations are forwarded out to members, including the health and infrastructure ones as well, please? Thank you.
Sir Tierney.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I'm happy to second the proposal by Councillor Boggs. I think I said it earlier on, you know, literally as you're going through that slide by slide by slide, presentation by presentation, you're actually seeing the transformation of Strabane Town Centre, and it's something which I'm sure our Strabane-based councillors are more excited about than us Derry ones. But for me, you're actually looking at it and saying this is going to be a magnificent change. And, you know, for it to be your town centre, I understand that. But even from a council perspective, I'm looking at it and going, this is going to be incredible once we actually get this on the road. So I think it's fantastic. I think a lot of people, some councillors included, sometimes sit and wonder, you know, what's going on with the city deal? It's taking that long and all of this. And then you get that presentation and you see that's what's going on with it and that's where the work's being done. And there are people working away every day to try and get all this stuff written up and get it ready to go. And sometimes we can think we're eye off the ball and not appreciate that work is still happening in the background. So from our perspective, I want to thank everybody who presented today and gave us that information, because I think it's been really useful. I look forward to seeing the ones about Derry coming through. I really do now. But no, look, I think it's great, and I'm happy to propose the recommendation on behalf of the SDLP. Thank you. Or sorry, second.
Just before I bring Alderman Hussey in, just to confirm, that's obviously the recommended option that you're proposing. Mr. Boggs, yep, that's 4B, is it? 4B.
No, this is the overall recommendation.
Oh, that's just the overall. That's fine. Just get that clarified. Or Alderman.
That's all been said, is proposed and seconded. Let's not hold it back. It has been highlighted there. It's transformational. And for myself, knowing most of these projects from embryo stage years and years and years ago, to see that come to fruition is absolutely brilliant. I'm not a Strabane councillor, but it's something that Strabane District Council was looking for years ago, and it's great to see this coming about through the city deal process, and indeed thanks to the other partners who are bringing their own resources into the overall equation. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. So well done to everyone, and I'm very happy to support and endorse the proposal.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Jackson online.
Good Deputy Mayor, and just and I'll be brief. I think the word transformational has been used quite a bit, and we've had a lot of detail today that demonstrates the work, the sheer amount of work that's been put on by officers and our partners over the past couple of years, and see if we. And I know that the risks have been highlighted in all of this, but I think what we're seeing now is the ambition of council, they continue to move forward, given the uncertainty. We're continuing to move forward. They develop these business cases and develop these schemes. We're seeing the fruits of that now, and I think we need to continue with that same level of ambition as we move forward. And Deputy Mayor, hopefully this doesn't need an amendment, but and I don't want to delay this meeting any further, but I would be keen to see, because this is the biggest level of investment that this council has ever seen, and it shows the benefits of collaborative working. But given the huge capital investment that the City Deal projects will bring, I would request that a paper be brought to the relevant committee around just detailing what the social clauses that may be may be available as part of these capital projects, and specifically focusing on the council initiatives. But it would be useful to see what social clauses are in place and what potential for further social clauses would be, given the huge sums of money and the huge investment that we're seeing in terms of capital as part of as was demonstrated today. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Yep, I've got anybody. John, if you want. Yep.
No, just through you, Deputy Mayor, that's an absolute necessity, that piece of work, Councillor Jackson. So that piece of work will be brought forward through the next phase as all of the projects now move to that OBC stage and prior to procurement of the significant works. I'm certainly happy to scope that paper and bring it back into the future committee.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Rimbar online.
Thank you, Chair. Now, just to say that this will be fantastic for Strabane's an understatement. Hopefully, we'll see this come to fruition sooner rather than later. I'm more than happy to endorse. I'm particularly happy about the footbridge link in the bus station with Christie's Bar right now.
There's nothing like it. It's a declaration of interest, Councillor Byrne.
Oh, not yet.
I don't think we have any other speakers, but I think, I don't think we need to vote on it. I think everybody's happy enough, unanimous. I think that everybody's happy enough. So confidential now, John, yep. Yep. So proposer and second, anyone confidential? Opposed, second, yep.